Be realistic about it. If you want to be, if you want to be really realistic about it, you'll sit there and go like this. You'll sit here and go, fine, okay. Why? Why do you ask? And you go, can you not?
I am recording this. This is going to go on YouTube.
You tell me this shit.
I did.
All right. Well, but that's not how it is at all. Nope, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. It's true though, you know.
I know it is.
I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna go live now, Darren.
No. What is the thing with my phone though? I gotta find a way to fix my freaking phone here. Anyway. So, but that's good. I'm glad I came. I'm gonna claim my wealth. I can't talk today. I don't know what my deal is today. I was up early today. That was my problem.
I was up at like 3. And then apparently didn't get back to sleep until like 6. Yeah, it was like 5:30 or 6 by the time I was.
That's cool. That's cool.
But no, I'm very happy with it.
No, but you think came out good though. I mean, I will say. We are live. We are live.
I told you that.
I thought you said you said you were recording. I just noticed.
I said recording, and I said now I'm going to take us live.
No, I see. My problem is I got to pay attention more. Well, good morning, everybody.
Really?
Thanks for jumping on her. But wow, okay. Well, there's a hardcore really right there. Was it Tuesday already? Anyway, good morning.
Good morning, Robert, Snyder, Lori.
Everybody's jumping on early.
Barbara emailed me this morning, and she got her book too, Darren.
Oh, she did. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I think everyone's received their books by now. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
who the hell knows?
So.
But
good morning, David from Tennessee, and Paul, and hey, Ryan. It's good to have you back this week.
Yeah. Look who's back. Look who survived the anniversary of the Stamp Act. Ryan's back.
It's like this alert has interrupted rare book browsing. There's a lot of money you've saved me. Thank you, Colonials.
A Sheridan hat. Al, you have a Sheridan hat?
Nice.
Does she really? Allie's our hero because she made our logo. We owe her some serious props because
we asked her to do our logo and she did it for us. So
she did, awesome. And she did it right, and it came out awesome, way better than I thought it was gonna. See, I told you it was gonna be good. I don't know why you thought it was gonna suck. I'm kidding. I'm Jesus Christ. I can't joke. I know I'm kidding. She's both. That wasn't your usual shock. That was your dead look. Okay. But in any case,
morning.
Yeah. Oh, good morning, everybody. So that was good. So, how are things? We had a good podcast. I thought we listened to it this morning. It was about Five Forks. So it was fun to talk about Five Forks. And I
thought it was a really good discussion. And as always, I learned a lot in it. And it's fun just to not just discuss the battle part, It's fun to discuss what's going on behind the scenes too. That is.
Well, that's the whole part about all these battles, right? Mm-hmm. It talks about it talks about the lead up, right, to these whole things, and that's what's so cool about this. And it was fun. We were watching our friend Gary from EBT talk about that in his live the other day, or his video, whatever he does, about the lead up to it, which is really, really cool. 16th and the 20th
Heckman.
Right there.
And actually, there was a question here. Oh, Allie said no problem. Happy how about? Yeah, Allie, we appreciate it. Oh, hey Jim, Lisa's husband Jim is on. He says good morning. Go UMass.
UMass, what is that? I don't know about. I do not recognize UMass. UMass has got an easy walk in the Frozen Four. They played Bemidji beat Wisconsin, which is typical Big Ten, typical Wisconsin. Right. They should call the Big Ten hockey conference the 1,400 stimulus check. It's gone in a week. Gone. That's what they should call it. And it's up to Minnesota. They're the only one carrying the flag now. Michigan got COVIDed. They got bounced out. They got COVIDed.
Got the Ronas.
Wisconsin is out, and they got the Ronas. So so we'll see. I'm still hoping for a BC Minnesota semifinal. Hopefully UMass gets freaking bounced. But anyway, whatever.
I'm looking forward to watching hockey this weekend. Actually, I didn't get to catch the games last night because I was editing a little bit later because I was out earlier.
You were out earlier.
I was.
You're taking a new tattoo for a test drive, apparently.
See, now you point at your flag, and I can point at the tattoo.
Like I said, I would have given that dude, what was it, Matt?
Matt.
I would have given him anything he wanted to make it say Mo instead of O and not W. Oh, that would have been. Oh, to have you walk around with life with Mo Howard on your arm.
God,
that would have been it. That would have been. You know what? I'm checking out. Life is fulfilled.
That needs to be a Simpsons meme. You do realize that you've got to put Howard's head on Mo, the bartender, now.
Oh, that's probably. Oh, yeah. Well, Howard. You're talking about Three Stooges here. Talking.
Yeah, I know that too. But for some reason, I just thought of Mo from
yeah
as well.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so
Robert said, "Great episode. Thank you."
Yeah, go appreciate that. It's fun doing this one because Five Forks is always the one. I think it's one of those battles that a lot of people confuse with like Sailor's Creek and Third Petersburg, and it's funny how the historian people are very specific about, is it the end of the Petersburg campaign or the beginning of the Appomattox? Like, it makes a freaking difference, right?
And it's so confusing. But is it Lewis Farm is the beginning of the Yeah, Lewis Farm.
Lewis
right?
Farm was the beginning.
The beginning.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, theoretically it was. I mean, Fort Stedman theoretically was the beginning of it. And if you really want to split hairs, if you really want me to pull out my actually card, Fincher, but it was good because the Fort Stedman. I need an actually card. That's what I need to get around.
Someone sort of did that in one of the tattoo comments. They told me that Howard was at Gettysburg. Like,
he was. Huh. That answers that question. What if Howard was at Gettysburg? We can ask.
Yep. Nicholas says, "Good morning from Phoenix. Great new podcast. Cool new tattoo. Thank you."
Oh, my friend Tom is from Arizona. He's from Chandler, Arizona. He's out there right now. He doesn't listen to this for some reason, but who knows why.
Snyder said, "What? Ron Howard, Roon Howard."
Well, that's the thing too. But I think it came out awesome. I think it really came out good. And I know you mentioned. I think you said you booked it. What was it, last December? You said you booked it.
Yep.
It was a while. Yeah. So
they were really because we had another shutdown in Ontario, so they got shut down for a while. So I wasn't sure if it was going to get moved. So I emailed them this week to say, "Hey, like, what's going on?" And they're like, "Oh no, we kept you in because it's only going to take us it literally took half an hour." Like that. Was it.
Well, that and the 20 minutes of crying afterwards. That probably
Hey, I thought I did. It didn't like the pain was not that bad at all. Like, he did a little bit, and then because he knew it was my first tattoo, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm like, oh yeah, this is nothing." Like, I'm
an IPA girl. This is nothing. Anyway,
it was sore for about an hour after, and then the pain just disappeared.
Well, that's like my last one. That's the thing is and they are addicting. I mean, speaking of Heckman on here, talking to Heckman about tattoos, but no, once you get one, you're already planning the next one. It is addictive. I'm glad you did it. I know you've been talking about it for a while. And so I know it was either going to be Howard or Schimmelfenning when you were charging about a letter. So you decided to go with Howard, but certainly that's the right call. Yep. She's a tattooed historian. She certainly is.
Yeah. So are you, Darren?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we both are. Tattoo pain is addictive, Snyder said. Yeah, that's what it is.
It actually is kind of addictive. Like, it hurts to a point. Like, I've got two, like one pretty big one and one medium-sized one. But the big one, the coloring is that hurts. But it's almost like that. I don't know that it's if you've got one, you know what I mean. But if you haven't got one, it's a pain that's like, I don't know. It's
tolerable. It's tolerable.
But it brings you to like a level of pain that it kind of brings your emotion. I don't know how it does it, but you get done. You're like, I kind of like that. I don't know what that makes me. No,
I did.
I don't know. Maybe that's what I am.
No, I had the same feeling doing it, but it was also that I've been waiting a long time to do this, and I was waiting for the right thing to speak to me. And this is what I'm like. No, this is what I'm getting done. And I know now I want to get like other signatures and other I would love to get whatever symbol, if it's part of the AOP, if it's signature part of the AOP, get that symbol as well. I'm so glad I got the moon on it.
Well, I'm gonna get you loaded and get a Tom Brady tattoo on you, and you're gonna wake up.
No. Oh my God.
with that meme with the face.
Hey,
anyway, but that'd be funny. Anyway, so Five Forks, we started to talk about that. So this is a good one because it's interesting how it all plays itself out, because it's one of those things where Governor K. Warren does almost everything wrong, but not his fault. But he overcomes all the issues, but still gets blamed for it. I thought it was interesting to see the politics. We've been talking about Grant's politics and guys like Sheridan throughout this, right? We talked about it many, many times, and this really shows itself on this one of just like the they weren't even hiding it anymore, right?
No, they will, like, they met and are talking about how things are going to go down, but then they're like, okay, now it's time to get Warren. Like this was, and like Chamberlain, like that Chamberlain quote we had where he was like, Howard, or not Howard, Warren should have been a mind reader. He should have treated Sheridan maybe better at this point, but I don't think he treated Sheridan badly. Like Warren was an asshole, but I think in this one he legit was like, okay, we're at the end. This is it. We need to work together. And then the guy from the second corps told Warren a few years later, it would have happened no matter what, that they were out to get you, and that's one of the interesting things about this battle. If you read up on it, and it's just talking about where everybody was. It's not talking about the politics that are playing into it, and that this battle literally leads to the demise of somebody that did not deserve it.
No, I right, and I think we were saying before, like whoever was left, I'm going to do it. After the game of musical chairs, right? But whoever was left was going to be the one who was going to have a future in politics. Yep. And I think they realized that it was the bottom of the ninth. It was 2 strikes, and this thing's about to end. Yeah. And so they said, well, you know what, we got to get Warren, right? I think there probably was, because all the trumped up stuff against him. He proves that phrase, "No good deed goes unpunished," right? He offers to go support Sheridan as he's going out to try to take the South Side Railroad, and not the White Oaks Road thing ends up being a battle, destroys the bridge over Gravelly Road, and he can't get over it. Grant says he'll be there by midnight without even knowing, so I don't know how that happens, but
it was deliberately, like, Jordan in his biography of Warren, like, if you're a Grant fan and you read that book, I'm warning you right now, be prepared that it is like, he's not very favorable of Grant at all. He refers to Sheridan as being Grant's pet, and he really shows how he tells Five Forks really well, but he also tells this backstory to what's going on really well. Like it was just completely set up. Like Grant sent that message to Sheridan, knowing full well that if Warren didn't show up at midnight, Sheridan was going to be pissed off.
Well, they were looking to get rid of him, because I think Warren, to a point, I think he was getting a little bit too big for his britches a little bit.
He was.
And I think they needed to knock him down. But you know what, though? He never showed any examples of really open cowardice or anything before.
No.
So a lot of that stuff. And I know they tried to get rid of him back in the earlier part of the Overland campaign, heading into the Cold Harbor, Spotsylvania, around there.
They were looking for a reason. And even Meade was on board with it too. And Meade had always defended him. But then Sheridan or Warren goes to Meade after he sees Grant, and Meade was like, I kind of agree with this, because you do this, and this. Warren didn't have the self-awareness to know that
there might have been a million things going on in the background that no one knows about what the deal was with Warren. I mean, there might have been, we only go by what we read, what we learn, and kind of what we guess, and try to fill in the gaps a little bit.
Yeah.
And people come across, I think we talk about this like we're anti Ulysses Grant or something like that. And we're not at all. But I think there just seems to be some sort of thing where it was kind of like pushing other people away.
Yeah.
But I never got the Warren one. And there's obviously a piece that's history is missing with
I think it was just as Warren. As the meme that you did for this one, it was the Mean Girls thing. It was somehow Warren was a threat. I think it plays into like the ego thing too, because there are, a lot of egos here. But yeah, like I don't hate Grant. I respect him. He's one of the greatest. Grant's one of the greatest generals ever.
He's probably one of the top 3 generals in American history. George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant. And you can go Patton or one of those guys if you want. I didn't say Lee, because you know why? Because he was only a colonel. He doesn't count. Sorry. That was fun.
That was funny. But yesterday,
anyway,
there's
I'm just messing with you.
Ryan says, one thing to be said for McClellan, Burnside, Hooker, and Meade, the guys that get dismissed almost always deserved it or weren't up to snuff. Grant and Sherman shaft a lot of talented competitors. They do. They do. And I don't know that Grant really dismisses Meade. He doesn't get, like, Meade's not demoted. He stays as commander of the AOP until the end of the war, right?
Don't get you going about that. Meade was not fired. You know. Oh, hey, Jen. That's you, Jen. I haven't seen her in a while. Jumping on.
Hey, Jen.
But yeah, but I think it's interesting. There's so much politics that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy who's kind of behind the scenes was his finger on the pulse of everything apparently is Joshua Chamberlain.
Oh, right? He's the little, I don't think he meant to be gossipy, but in a way he was. And Tony just asked, how does Jordan treat Chamberlain? He treats him pretty well, Tony. The book is really good. I do recommend Happiness Is Not My Companion, which is Warren's biography. It's a really, really good read.
A Mary Pincher story.
Fucker. Yeah, Ryan said Meade is made redundant while kept in post. Yeah, no way.
I can see the reviews of your book. It'll just say it's fine.
Jesus.
If you want to buy the soft copy, not the hard copy, can you not? Yeah, but
can you not, like? Paul just said you can be a Grant fan and still agree that he played favorites. He did.
Amelia.
Hey Amelia. Sheridan was.
I wish I could go to from DC. I love DC.
Washington
DC is so cool.
I know it is.
Last time I was there, you know what I did? I went to go see Mary Surratt's grave there.
I know. I remember that.
I did. It was very good.
I'm going to see it next time I'm there. Allie B said he had no trust with Warren. Grant was over Warren halfway through the Overland campaign and never really had any faith in that afterwards. Yeah, they were looking to get rid of him.
But he sends that letter even before Five Forks to Sheridan and say, hey, if you want to get rid of this guy, do it, knock yourself out and send him back to headquarters. And it's interesting, the verbiage that Sheridan does use to Warren to fire him is the same verbiage that Grant told him he could say. You were relieved of command, please go see Grant at headquarters. I'm probably a generic letter, probably.
Yeah.
But I think traffic is the worst. But I think it's a situation though where they had it out for him, and you know what? It may have been justifiable. It may have been. It just doesn't seem like it was.
And I don't think it was.
Right.
I don't think it was.
And you might have. Who knows? Maybe he went to the old Bang Barn.
Bang Barn.
Who knows?
Warren was a Bang Barn visitor when he was in New Orleans with Humphreys. He and Humphreys were God. They got around. Holy shit. Talk about musical chairs.
Gettysburg, Warren. Yeah, I would say we said on the podcast that up until 1993, G.K. Warren was the hero of Little Round Top.
Yep,
something happened in '93 that changed it. You know what that was.
Chamberlain ascended onto heaven and became a god. That was when
the movie came out, right? But up to that point, I mean, there's no statue of Chamberlain. Although he was going to get one, and there's a rock right behind where the 20th Maine is that it was supposed to go, but he says he never wanted one, which is very un-Chamberlain-like in a way. All he ever said was, I don't ever want a statue, I just want my face on a beer bottle, which I can appreciate. And that's what he did. Too. Right, and Shipyard made a Chamberlain Pale Ale for him. But that's, you can still, but that's the thing. But up until the movie came out, I mean, Gouverneur K. Warren was the hero of Little Round Top because you cannot deny what he did there. And I think we mentioned on the podcast, it's ironic that it was the Fifth Corps that was his undoing, right? After it was the Fifth Corps that he helped with Strong Vincent at in Little Round Top. Yeah, but, that's the way life is. Life is circular, I guess.
When you look at that, I've always enjoyed that part. Like that part of Day 2 of Gettysburg is probably my favorite story from that day. Is when Meade is tearing a strip off of Sickles, and Warren's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go over this way and see what that kind of quote like figurative smoke is." Because Meade is going around putting out big fires, and Warren is finding the smoke that could become big fires, and he finds the round tops. And the way that he, just the whole thing where he has that guy fire the artillery and he sees the bayonets turn in the trees.
Yeah,
he sees them there, and he's like, we got to get men up here.
He stays up on that very rock, the same rock. That's how it was.
Yeah.
And Andrew, was probably warm, so I just want to let you know. Okay, get you going on that stupid thing. Anyway, and he he hears some. He says I hear some light peppering going on, and he
He did
messages.
not. He's like, there's something fucking going on
Right.
here.
Well, that's what he wrote. But he tells James Smith's battery over in Devil's Den to fire some shots into the woods, and he sees the bayonets shining in the sun, and then he knows they're over there, and he knows because at that point they thought the Confederates had ended where they had the little excursion over in Pitcher's Woods over there where the amphitheater is now.
Yep.
Those northern monuments on the Confederate side on Confederate Avenue.
Yep.
They thought the line ended there, but Warren, he saved their bacon. And there's that story about how Strong Vincent, he was looking for General Barnes, and he took the initiative, and that's debated, but shockingly by Barnes, by the way. But I think I think that absolutely was his high mark, right? Now he was an engineer by definition. That's what he was.
Yep.
He was one of the best there was.
Very talented man, but he was like Chamberlain loves Chamberlain. Warren loved Warren even more. Like there was. He was borderline almost like, I'm like, dude's a bit of a narcissist.
He was.
Jen says Chris says hello. Hi, Chris.
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
Chris is a Sherman. He reenacts as Sherman.
He is. So he's an uncle. Hope he has an Uncle Blingy shirt. Gotta get him one.
And Jen also said she had a good point here. She's like, in my opinion, Grant and Sherman got shafted in the start, so I can kind of empathize. To be fair, I haven't read as much as everyone else. Well, Jen, you know as much about the Civil War as any of us here. Like, and I think, Grant and Sherman did get shafted at the start too. That did happen to them. But then they managed to kind of like overcome that. Sherman, especially with his breakdown, that he had, and then he had to be sent back to Ohio and all that, so they had their moments too.
No, I think it's interesting, about him. And I visited his grave. He's buried down in Newport, down in Frail Island, I call it now.
Frail Island.
And it's a very nondescript grave. It's kind of tough to find. You need that Find a Grave app, and you need to put that GPS into it, and it can lead you through it. But it's just, it's just on a flat ground, just Governor K. Warren General. It did not much to it. There's not a lot to it, stuck in the back. But it's sad what happened to him though, because it's the bigger you are, the harder you fall, I guess it was. And I think he probably had visions of some Abraham Lincoln memorial type gravestone. Probably. A lot of these guys do. And he just has like anybody else. He has like some random person. Not much to it. I want to go visit though. There's actually there's a really good. Is Ben on still? Is he still on? But there's a really good brewery called Coddington's, I think it's called, which is in Newport, which is right near there. It has really good wings and a whole bunch of beers. Just in case you feel like libations in the area. Visit. I'm pretty sure it's called Coddington's. I think that's what it's called.
We could do a whole episode on Civil War travels and breweries.
Well, there's God, you're trying to find a lot around here, but that place is really, really good. But I think Warren, he's an interesting dude just because of his history and the way it all played out for him. He had his eyes on the prize, certainly, but then they all did, and Sheridan was one of the guys who certainly did. And what was interesting? We'll go back to Five Forks here, right? Is on the Confederate side, right? Mm-hmm. Is how much, and we talked about this in the podcast, how that shad bake is completely dumped on Pickett and not Fitzhugh.
I know.
Historically,
it totally I see that as being so different now.
Well, I mean, you mentioned shad, right?
Yeah.
If you think of George Pickett, you think of, and you're a complete shut-in loser like us, you think of two things: Pickett's Charge and shad bake, right? Yeah. It's Pickett's Tremble, pedigree right off the bat, and then it should be the Pickett Fitzhugh shad bake. Shad bake. So Thomas Rosser, okay, he's going to go to Fitzhugh and say, we're having the shad bake in the back at Hatch's Run, back behind Five Forks. We want to come. They invite Pickett. Pickett, of course, says yes. He's always up for a good time. Mm-hmm. And so while they're going is when the assault really starts in their front. So he tells Rosser, go see what the hell's going on. We'll be in the back. That's Lee who says that, not Pickett. Yeah. So Fitzhugh and Pickett go back to the shad bake while everything's hitting. And they end up escaping and all that stuff. But the thing about it though is Lee never forgave Pickett for that. So we mentioned before, a week or two later, because it was getting towards the end, when he sees Pickett riding by on that horse, and he says to Walter Taylor, mm-hmm. what is that man still doing with this army? alluding to the fact that he was fired, but he obviously wasn't. And after the war, it was funny because we can fucking tangents, but after the war, Robert E. Lee, he's going to be the president of Washington Lee College.
Yep.
He has those chest issues, right? And so, like most people who are sick at that time, they'd say, go somewhere warm, right? Because they nothing they could do for it. So they send Lee down to Savannah to go hang out. Poor Savannah, right?
Did he go in the back door?
Probably did. Certainly did. But they send Lee down to Savannah, right, to kind of clear his head and be warm, or what they can do for him. And so they try to keep it secret, but there's a train, there's people waving. He's a rock star. So they end up there, and who does he run into? Lee does, but John Mosby, right? So Mosby, so Mosby says, let's have dinner, have lunch, and Lee's like, all right, fine. He's like, but what he does, he doesn't tell Lee. He's got Pickett with him. So he brings Pickett to the lunch with Lee. So Lee sees him and he stands up like he does and glares at him. And it's very icy and cold. And I think honestly, Pickett still has that anger from Pickett's charge. And Lee has that anger from Five Forks, right? So I think Pickett in his mind was thinking, this is the last time I'm going to see this guy. I want to bury the hatchet and live my life. But Lee just doesn't have it, right? And so they end up leaving, and Pickett's all pissed, right? And they're walking out. And Pickett says to Mosby, he goes, that old man ruined my army, right? And then Mosby says, yes, but he made you famous, right? It's one of the best lines of post-war line. But that's kind of how it was, though. So
it was.
But he doesn't say a word about Fitzhugh Lee, right? Who kind of has the last name, and there's a
well, I think it was Paul who mentions that. Paul said it's all relative. Pickett wasn't a relative of Robert E. Lee, and that's where this goes into. Is it's the historical memory that of here's this mistake that has been made with being at a fucking shad bake. You're in an acoustic shadow, so you can't hear shit. And you're the guy that's done the Pettigrew Pickett Trimble charge. Right. Your name is all over that. And then all of a sudden this happens, but it's not you who the decision has been one that someone else has been involved with too.
That's why I put Lee in that meme with the shad today.
Exactly.
Right? Because no one ever does. People don't realize that he was probably more complicit in the whole thing. Now, was that going to change the battle? No. Was that going to change the war outlook? No. But it was embarrassing at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a guy who, again, we talked before, right? About last week when Richard Garnett was fired by Stonewall Jackson after Kernstown. And Stonewall was the man. And Lee wasn't around at that point, right? So when you're called a coward by someone like that, you're called out. That's tough to walk off. This is similar to that, right?
It is.
Where Lee is basically blaming him, and you got to know Pickett's sitting there with his curly pigtails and his perfume. and his perfume from Sally, right? What
Sally?
Thinking, wait a second, this isn't just me. Why the hell does Fitzhugh not get blamed for this too? Why is it just me? And I haven't seen much. I didn't see anything in those Freeman books about it. I'll tell you that.
No, you're not, and you're not going to. It's kind of like what we see with Stones River, how Lincoln says it's a victory, and Grant's like, nope.
Yeah, right. But that's again, that's a historical memory thing.
Yeah, and that's why you have to look at when you're reading this stuff. Really ask questions and look at like different sources and start looking, okay, why is it this way? I saw Grant one way for a long time, and like I said, I still respect Grant. He's not my favorite general, everybody.
Oh, here we go.
Favorite generals, whatever.
Hey, who's your favorite general?
But
might as well crack open another one.
There's a lot of what are you on beer like number fucking 6 this morning? Over on time?
Oh, okay then. Yeah, all right, wow, okay, well, hey, okay then. Fire up. That glass house you live in with all those rocks that you throw? I'm just saying. I'm just gonna sit here with my halo and just listen to all this crap.
Okay.
Tattoo grumpy.
That was a brilliant name you came up with for me.
Tattoo grumpy. But seriously though, but it's like Five Forks is important because it sets up the post-war politics. 'Cause like I said,
Yeah.
the war was basically over when Atlanta fell. I mean, it really was. The politicians didn't know it. The politicians found out for sure probably when right around this point. They probably knew, but they didn't. And there was still guys like E.P. Alexander, okay,
Yeah.
who still wanted to fight a guerrilla war.
Yeah.
You had Longstreet doing the whole not yet thing.
Yeah.
But they all at this point they knew, right? So it's you have a lot of that going on where it's kind of like I don't think they were like when you're going to lose, right? You sort of mentally prepare the post loss how we're going to get out of this with some sort of dignity, and they really didn't do that. I mean, it was really the graces of Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
Who really allowed them to have that dignity. Now, don't forget to me, after we gotta do a podcast on the post war with Lee. We have to do that, right?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that
5 or
at
so
some
years.
point, and then in a few weeks we're gonna do the catching Jeff Davis.
Yeah, we talked about that. But I think though it's like there was all that stuff going on. Johnson is president, and they're gonna. They're trying to say how to deal with the South, and they're going to pardon everybody, but they don't want to pardon the government people and the ringleaders. And Lee's thinking he's going to get prosecuted. He has that deal with Grant. He's like, wait a second, I have this deal, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't realize that Johnson's going to pardon him. He pardons everybody except Mary Surratt, apparently, but that's another freaking story with Johnson.
And Stanton. I hate Stanton.
But so Lee doesn't know what's going to happen. And so he has that pardon signed, which actually he doesn't even get pardoned until Gerald Ford does it in the 70s.
I know.
Right?
It's just
which is kind of weird and the whole thing.
Andrea's got Andrea going back to Pickett's chart. She said Pettigrew was insanely brilliant. I don't know what he was like as a general, but he knew like 7 languages, went to college at 15. He was actually really good as a general. He was one of these ones that he hadn't gone to West Point, right?
University of North Carolina.
Yeah.
He was a Tar Heel.
So he's one of these ones that hasn't gone to West Point, and he was offered promotion quite a few times, but he was like, no, I'm not deserving of this. But he was proving himself at the time of his death to be someone who was quite talented.
Well, he joins and he's a grunt. He's a private. And someone realized like this dude speaks like 1,000 languages, and they got wind of it. They said, well, maybe we should not send him up run of the guns here. So they save him. He does get wounded badly before, and they tell his family he died. He didn't, and there's a lot of that. But he's someone who was promoted because of attrition, right? Especially at Gettysburg, where they were falling left and right. You guys like Dorsey Pender falling down, and he ends up with that taking over that division that ultimately fights with Pickett and Trimble, obviously. But he got a little too aggressive there. At the end, during the retreat, which you got to read the book by Kent Masterson, Mary, got to read it as he explains it
in our book club.
Yep. It talks about him at Falling Waters, where he's basically personally charging a sharpshooter who was from Massachusetts, by the way, just saying, and he gets shot in the chest, and he goes up the spout, as they say.
Yeah.
But that was a big loss for them. And at that point, mid 1863, the war hadn't been decided yet. I mean, Vicksburg had just fallen; they didn't really know it, but it was that was a big loss. And it's another one of those. I mean, I don't think it's an Albert City Johnston level type loss.
I think it was more
a Stonewall level like loss, obviously, but I think
post-war loss. It was the post-war that would have factored into it, because Pettigrew was somebody that was kind of on the fence about secession, and he's fighting for the South. But I think he would have been like another Longstreet, somebody to kind of help with Reconstruction, and maybe if there had been more voices in that, maybe things might have gone a little bit differently. But yeah, he was a very the 7 languages, and just he's kind of a rising star at the time he is cut down. So who knows what Pettigrew could have become had he lived. I think mostly post-war is where he would have been the most helpful.
You might have seen a little more publicity for the North Carolinians, like when we talked before about the Battle
Pickett's charge might be seen as something very differently.
Well, North Carolina had just as many casualties as Gettysburg and Virginia did. North Carolina and New York, I think, are the 2 highest states. I think Virginia and Carolina, they say it's tied, but I think Carolina probably had more ultimate casualties in that battle. There's that line that someone said that the Carolinians did all the work and the Virginians got all the credit at Gettysburg, and then some of that's true, especially when it comes to to that battle. But I think he's somebody. I think you're right. Could have been somebody who would have helped because he wasn't this hardcore Virginian. He wasn't this hardcore, fire eater type of guy. I think he's somebody would have been a middle of the road, a Mosby, a Longstreet, somewhere like that, who might have helped the new administration.
Yeah, he's a lot how I imagined Claiborne would have been. Like Claiborne is, but then Claiborne's very passionate about the cause for the South. But I think he would have come around and been like, okay, now we have to work with these guys to rebuild our country, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. Because Claiborne didn't have a stake in slavery other than fight. Like, obviously I don't agree with what he fought for, but he said, he's like, I don't have an opinion on it. I just live here and I'm fighting for my home. And of course the Irish thing factors into it as well, right? Like
the Irish thing is a big deal. And people, I live in a city here, which there are more people of Irish descent in the city of Boston than there is in Ireland right now. That's not hyperbole. That's fact, no fiction. Okay, I know my grandfather was born in Ireland. There you go. Right.
I have Irish. All my ancestors were born in England, but there's tracing it far back though. I go back to Ireland more than I thought.
I'm basically English and Irish, which I said before, which is why I hate myself.
I'm English, Irish, and a little bit of German.
Okay.
My mom was my mom's mother was German.
But the point is like, I think people don't realize how hated the Irish were when they came. I mean, they weren't as hated as much as say the blacks or anything like that. But they were someone who was seen as someone who was coming here to take their jobs. They were heavily. You see those Irish need to apply. You still see those signs. You can still see them. They don't see them anymore, but you can go online and see them in the history stuff. But when they came to fight, they were basically, a lot of these people were told when they got off the boat, you're here to fight. And you're going to fight for the Union. Yeah,
that scene in Gangs in New York where they're literally coming off the book or the boat, signing up, and then you see the coffins being unloaded. And it's all these immigrants. And I mean, that movie is I consider that movie to be a Civil War movie. It is, because it's showing another side to it. It's showing kind of the home front side to it, a lot like Copperhead does.
Yeah. So when you get here, because you live in England, you want to come to the United States, and like we said before, just like it is now, this country has not always been open doors for immigration. It just hasn't changed, But I think the Irish came and they were like, well, you're here, you're gonna fight, and that's how it was. And one of every 4 Union soldiers in the Civil War was not from here, and that's a stat that does not get published enough. And a lot of Germans, obviously, Irish, Canadians, even, right?
Yeah. The Canadian thing is it's an interesting one because
Canada didn't really exist. That's a little different. It's a little thing, though. I mean, 1867. Well, sorry if I'm here with the facts.
I know.
Sorry if I'm breaking. I don't know if you know this, but your country didn't exist till 1867.
I know, and one of the reasons we came into existence was because of the Civil War, because we were on the chopping block to annex to you guys because of what was going on over in Britain.
We should have taken advantage of
that.
Well,
the funny thing is
the hockey team would be. Think how awesome the Olympics would be right now.
Yeah. So like the Canadian connection to the Civil War is interesting because we had such a connection, obviously still tied to England, right? And outwardly we were like, yeah, we're for the Union, but we cheered Confederate victories in our parliament. That's been documented.
Well, the reason, why they did that, right?
Yeah, because the cotton.
Well, not just the cotton, but not just the economic reason.
Yeah.
Every country, for the most part in the world, wanted the Civil War to cut the country, and by all accounts, it should have, because England, France, those places, they wanted to show their people that this American democratic experience failed, right? See, you want democracy? Look what the United States is going through. Is that what you want here? Because if you showed a democratic society falling apart at the seams, and fighting a civil war, falling apart and failing, that's all the incentive you need to keep those democracy people at bay in your own country. That's why they wanted. That's why the governments. And the only reason, for the most part, that these countries didn't come into this is because of the slavery issue.
Yeah, that was
England and France. England and France had both, dumb slavery, and they couldn't do it. And that's what the movie, the Gettysburg movie, has it right. Is it, in where Claiborne had it right, where if they had dumped the slavery thing, the Confederacy at the beginning, it would have been a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
But then it's guys like Judah Benjamin. These guys have those quotes. Then what are we fighting for then? Then what is this all about then?
Exactly.
So they couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, like Claiborne saying, like, we need to do this because he's recognizing that they're bleeding men. And I don't know, he must have been a genius at math, which is the opposite of me, because he had calculated to the point when they were going to run out of men. And I think he was pretty close.
Professor Sammy is online. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
We just finished our class last Thursday with her. We had a very touching graduation ceremony.
We did.
Tears were shed. It was tough.
It was fun.
We passed her intense course of the Civil War nameless on the faces, and we got. I thought I had her book down here still.
I do. I got it.
Everyone, look at the picture. Okay, that book is really. You guys should buy that book.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon.
It's just such a different way to look at the Civil War. It's very humanizing, which I think we need more of in the field, because knowing about the battles and the facts about that is great. But when you look at these guys as humans, it makes it a lot. I think it makes us easier to connect to it. And she does a really good job with this, with her poems, and she knows her stuff about the Civil War. So this one is called The Nameless and the Faceless of the Civil War. And you can get it on Amazon. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Indigo. And it's a really, really good book, definitely worth checking out. And she's got other books too, poetry books, and she's having her Nameless and Faceless Women of the Civil War is coming out on April 14th. So, and she's going to be doing a lecture as well for Civil War Roundtable Congress on, I think it's April 21st. So her book, highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm just putting on the comments on it right now.
Awesome.
But it's a great book. And it just is, and and she's like us. She's really into the whole Booth thing.
Which is awesome.
And so there's some good things coming from Lisa Samia down the line with some books. So we'll leave it at that. But it was a great class. But definitely buy the book, because it's something that really is an eye opener, because it's a creative way. And this whole thing's always been about humanizing, right?
Yeah.
This with us, and it does a really good job of that. But neither here or there. But that's but by the book,
I really enjoyed it. I'm actually thinking of lending the book to my mom, because I think she would enjoy it too. It's just a different way to look at stuff, and it really it's another
Here's another book, Mary Margaret.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll be I'll get the doesn't know the book yet. That'll be interesting. And Jen Rolling said, "Man, I miss these. I'm finally all set up and settled. I'll get back to American Civil War tunes." Jen, we're glad to have you back on here. I know you've had a bit of a move and all that, so it's great that you're back here, and awesome that you brought Chris along with you to watch this morning too. So you were definitely a very valued and welcome member in this little community here.
Oh, Andrea says, "Oh, hey, Andrea, I see you jump on." Andrea is going to her presentation on the Civil Roundtable, the Congress one. Yeah, that's a good one. We've been on that one. That was good. We had
You didn't see Andrea jump on. She was the one that asked the question about Pettigrew.
Oh,
my God!
I'm too busy focusing on our conversation. You're the one who reads the comments. Yeah, well, whatever.
It's important to interact with people. Kurt.
No.
Fine.
But anyway, hello, Andrea Pike. But anyway, but yeah, Lisa's presentation is really, really cool. It's good. It's really interesting. So just definitely check that out. But
anyway. it's really awesome. And yeah, her core. I think when she does another course, I think we're definitely gonna sign up for it, because it was a lot. It was a great time. It was really, really good.
You better send her your SAT scores then. You better, because I don't know, you barely made this last one.
Booker.
You gotta get past the admissions process.
Jesus. I think I was one of the first Canadian. They told me when we signed up for it that I had a little bit of trouble with it, because Canadian credit card and all that, and address. And I was told I was the first Canadian.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, fuck you, Wings. What was that for? Wow. Okay. The hell?
Hey, good morning, Mark. Mark was one of our classmates.
Such anger. Anyway, Adam, thanks for jumping on, man. Hopefully, if we talk about it.
Hey, Al. Al's here from Civil War Lampoon.
Oh, Al is here. Al's the man. Civil War.
We always put in a plug for Civil War Lampoon, which is
Lampoon's the best. It is the best.
It's a great website.
You've read a few of my questions, Demis. I did. I just went through it. It's early. Okay, it's early. Sorry, but anyway, how are you? Go touch a rock. Oh, I will.
Go touch a rock.
I got a rock for you to touch. Okay, whatever. But
jeez.
but I'm just kidding. But no, seriously. But anyway, it's great to it's great to have people on. But yeah, Al's awesome. Al's thing's really cool.
Well, Adam's got to
Lampoon is all.
off.
What's that?
Adam's got to go. He said, just call him. Must go. One thing I tell my students about war, and I tell my students, all's fair in love and war, and we don't teach love at the war college. Be safe, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'm still waiting for my approval from Lampoon. Al, you got to get on that, man. But we've done a lot of stuff. That's about 3 or 4 years old. That's a good stuff.
No, I've been on there for. It was Jay Price who actually she invited me to join it.
Really?
Yeah. It was Jay Price like 3 years ago. She invited me to join it. Yep.
Oh, I know.
I'm creeping on there for a while.
Yeah, you're finally active now. You got a whole.
I love it.
You got a whole Oliver Otis Howard fan base now.
It's so fucking crazy. Jensen touches George Thomas's face.
The Rocket, the Chickamauga Rock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plymouth Rock, Rock of Plymouth.
Is that the Rock of Plymouth? I forget that. So
I'm gonna scream that when I go there. I'm at the Rock of Plymouth.
Don't look at her. She's not well. All the school field trips that are always there. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
She's just out on a day pass.
She's just don't pay attention.
Just had to get her
throw a net over her in a second. Exactly. But anyway, but I thought, but her class is really, really good. Lisa's class, going back there real quick. Yeah. So yeah, and Anders, in all seriousness, I'm glad you're going to check out her thing.
Yeah, it's really good. She's really good. We enjoyed having her on the podcast too to talk about Asia Booth's book. And yeah, her class was really. It was great to just have a class that was not all focused on like battle statistics and where they were on the field and all that. It was more looking at it from the human perspective, like what you and I do with the podcast, kind of what's going on in the background. Robert says, I'm out, guys. The general is telling there is work to be done and I don't want her to put me under arrest and end up like Garnett. Be well. Lisa's in the O.O. Howard fan club, thanks to me.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So yeah, Lenny, you've taken off too. Yeah, it's a nice day out, so people are going to take advantage of that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not here. It's fucking raining and everything else. Just awesome.
But it's good. But it's gonna be a beautiful weekend here today. No question about that. But it's fun. It's fun how we go back and forth on these podcasts. Though we kind of jump. It's like an episode of Lost. We got the people are all over the place.
I know. I felt so bad when we were recording that. I kind of got a little bit ahead, but you're really good about bringing it back and telling more.
I don't mean that. I mean, we go from 1865 and the next week back in 1862. So
yeah.
But it is interesting though when we talk like we're doing Shiloh for the next 2 weeks. We'll be doing Shiloh 1 and Shiloh 2, and that'll be interesting too because it's a lot of the people who by 1865 are obviously gone. Mm-hmm. Are just kind of formulating how it was, right? So, and how and what's good about it is how these previous podcasts we've done are going to kind of dovetail into this one, right?
Yeah, like P. Ridge, Henry and Donaldson,
right? And so we talk about, P. Ridge, why Earl Van Dorn's tied up there, why he can't get out of Arkansas.
He's tied up in the Bang Barn.
Yeah,
he probably stopped at the Bang Barn.
He probably did, but like you have these armies all being converging on Corinth, right? And you got it's like the Isle of the Misfit Toys. You got Bragg, all these dudes, but they have different uniforms. It's still the beginning. They don't know who the hell's what, but they have a pretty good battle plan. It gets slowed up by the weather, obviously. We'll talk about this next week, but this is one where Bragg, and those guys who halfway decent, right?
Yeah.
You talk about Ruggles. He had those 62 cannon that he pounded that hornet's nest with, and just it really helped push the Union back. And it's one of those things. You do the what if thing, how history might have changed if they didn't lose those 2 days because of the rain. Yeah. And they were able to get them before Buell came down and save them on the 7th of April. Exactly. It's a fun one. And at that point, it was definitely the holy shit moment of the Civil War for these guys. This war was going to be quick.
Yeah, and Sherman gets kind of caught off guard there. And it's this too. One of the interesting things that I find about it is that it's not Missionary Ridge where Sherman starts to have this thing with Claiborne, and I'm seeing this rivalry more. And I think it existed more for Sherman than it did Claiborne. I don't think Claiborne, was like whatever, he's just a soldier there to fight. This is, I think, where their rivalry begins, because
it definitely is.
He's the one, and it's not. But I think the rivalry is completely from Sherman's point of view. You mentioned in the Meridian campaign episode about how Sherman was in Polk's head. I think Claiborne was someone that was in Sherman's head for a lot of the war, and that's, I think, the culmination of that happens at Kennesaw.
Right.
But I think it begins at Shiloh, because Claiborne is the one to attack him there. He's one of the ones that is at Shiloh Church by the end of the day, which is where Sherman was.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mistakes. At this point, it's funny how going into that battle, going up into Shiloh now, is how Halleck was all ready to claim every bit of credit for everything, right?
Oh,
he's like that dude, the meme with the dude behind the tree, right? That's Halleck, right? He's like, ooh, here we go, we got a little.
And everybody else is that dude with that chair, like,
yeah.
I did that last week on my back deck, and I nearly spilled my beer.
Oh, definitely.
I was trying to be all cool. I'm by myself, and I had one of those chairs, and I'm like, I'm going to be like that guy.
But again, there's a lot of mistakes, and that's what's great about these battles. And like we said a million times, people think history is this black and white deal. It's not. It's just, there's so many twists and turns to this. Sherman in the woods. Claiborne's going to come up on him, and people, he gets shot in the hand. At this point.
Yeah. Shot hits him. Yeah, and he Claiborne almost fucks up here too. I think he's the one that the night before, that's who they heard, because he was all like raring to go, and then they're like, no, not yet.
Jen, I wonder if Chris, if he has some fake scar in his hand from where he took that bullet in Shiloh, he should probably do that. That'd be pretty cool. That would be, you talk about you with your tattoo with Howard. That would be
devotion.
Living the part. Right. If he put a scar in his hand, this is where I got shot at Shiloh. Really? What?
David says the other person that was in Sherman's mind was Forrest, and I think this is. It's also because of Shiloh, because Sherman goes back on to that one place, and there's that little small battle that basically ends Shiloh, and it's Forrest, and that's where Forrest gets shot in the back, grabs the guy that shoots him, and uses him as a shield.
That was the final shot in the Battle of Shiloh.
That's so.
The Wizard of the Saddle.
Jen says he wraps it up when he walks around in April.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That is so freaking awesome.
Chris is a cool guy. And Jen ours, she's awesome too. It was fun to hang out with them at Sherman's birthday party.
Yeah, it's nice to have Civil War friends who
it's awesome.
Do that. Appreciate that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if I ever dress up as Sickles, I got to figure out how to make that happen though. Stumble around, push me around. You push me around some wheelchair. Yeah, get the hell off my lawn.
Here, fucker, go down a little round.
Go to the Schaefer farm and just pretend to get my leg cut off every couple of days. But it's cool. That's so cool though. But this will be a fun one to study, because it's just a mess. And you have that Ruggles artillery. That's at that point the most artillery in American soil of all time. And Pickett's charge will obviously take care of that. But no, that'd be fun. But it sets up. We said before, that's the culmination, right, of basically Henry and Donaldson.
Yeah.
And again, this is it's Grant's plan to go ahead and do this from the beginning. And Halleck's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna get myself some credit for this. Oh yeah, that picture sitting there. Dude, that's what he's thinking at that very moment. He's probably wondering why Harrigan stole his $20 bill though, but that's probably another thing, But that's what he's thinking, and it culminates in Shiloh. In Shiloh, it's just one of those words like Antietam or Gettysburg. It just Shiloh. You hear that, and you think about the
they say
bloody ponds and the hornet's nest. You think about all that stuff.
They say that at reunions after the Civil War, the men would all be sitting around talking, and they would be laughing about some of the battles and the things that had happened. But then someone would speak up and say, I was at Shiloh, and the room would just go silent, because that was the one where reality hit a lot of them as to how bad this was going to be. But I think it didn't hit, it hit hard. But then what hit them even harder was Antietam and the photography.
Lisa wants to see your tattoo.
Okay.
God, here we go again.
There it is.
She actually tweeted it from the podcast thing.
On Instagram. Yep.
Yep. So she's got a tattoo now. So there she goes.
I'm very happy. I am very. I couldn't be happier with it.
It came out good. It did.
I know. I love that the moon on there too for the 11th core, but the color I got it as well, blue.
It was funny how many people thought you were some big Orland Smith fan or something.
I know. And it's like, the moon is actually blue, partially because of Claiborne. His flag was blue. It had a moon on it. And I wanted to somehow figure him into this whole thing as well. And that's how I did it. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, it was a really good experience.
No, it came out awesome. It came out really, really good. I'm glad they spelt it right, despite my efforts to make it say Mo Howard. It was
Howard. No, and they were really good there, and they were like, the one guy that works there, who's kind of like the secretary, he was asking me, he's like, how did you get into all this? And he's like, what inspired you to get the tattoo? And I was like, well, I wanted to do it for a while. So I mentioned him, like, when you were getting yours, and then I knew a couple other people as well that were getting theirs, and I'm like, fine, I'm going to do this now. And they said, like, in COVID, they've seen kind of an uptick in people getting tattoos. But yeah, I've wanted one for a very long time. So this is.
You've been talking about it for a while, so I'm glad you finally did.
Yeah, no, I am too. And I had 3 different signatures of his I was looking at, and this was the one that just spoke to me the most. Mo Howard.
Yeah,
that's got to be.
That would have been so fun. Hey, do me a favor, I'm gonna give you $1,000. Just make it say Mo Howard and don't tell her. Oh, you would have been so pissed. Can you imagine?
God. Andrea says that Shiloh's an amazing place. I've been there twice and was there from open to close both times. I could spend days there. Yeah, I'm definitely going there post-COVID. Lori said the same thing. It's beautiful and peaceful. I'm still laughing about Mo Howard.
Yeah, pretty funny. I'm glad you finally did it. I'm glad you finally did it.
Oh, Allie K, the pain was not. It was not at all that bad. It was, I think I have, Darren he's going to fucking jump all over me for this one. I think I have a pretty high pain tolerance. I'm a person who suffers from migraines on a regular basis. And this was not that bad. It's more of an annoying kind of, it's like if you scratch your arm really hard, that's how it felt.
It's like they tell you, like, if you're ever getting a tattoo, they'll tell it, like, I when I got my last one, I've got a couple. I'll say, where, because he has this, the guy who does mine, this guy Josh, he has a tattoo in his neck, and I'm like, but he says the most painful place to get a tattoo is in your torso, like your stomach. He says that's the worst. He says any of your extremities, arms, legs, things like that aren't too bad. All of mine are my legs, so it's easy to deal with. But the pain, it's a I don't know. There's something about it that it's kind of like.
Well, like Snyder said, it's addicting, but it also apparently releases endorphins. But there's an adrenaline rush associated with it too, because like you told me about Tattoo Tired. Yeah. And it is exactly odd. This is going to sound really weird. It is the exact same as Roller Coaster Tired. When I go on roller coasters, there comes a point where I reach a level of exhaustion. No, I'm serious. It's because the adrenaline rush.
I know. I just roller
coaster tired is a thing.
Well, I think you know what it is. I think it's because the adrenaline and the rush.
That's exactly.
And then when it's over, your bottom settles down a little bit.
And that's why I have a migraine today, and I forgot to take Advil last night before I went to bed.
Yeah.
Because after I get an adrenaline rush like that, I end up with a migraine. So Pedialyte's my friend right now too, besides beer.
No, absolutely. Now I think we both agree that the greatest pain of all time is stepping on a Lego. We've talked about that.
I think any of the women here who have given birth are probably going to argue with you that it's not.
No, I'm gonna. You know what? Nope. I'm gonna double down.
I don't know about childbirth thing, but Lego.
Well, no thanks, Lego. But I'm glad you I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, because it came out really, really well. So I'm psyched for you. But
thank you.
And then you got to start thinking about that second one now.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a signature. I just need to decide who.
Telling you, Shimmel fan.
Oh God, I think Matt would probably have a heart attack. He's supreme.
Tattoo guy.
Yeah, he's supremely talented, but he was probably like, what the fuck, Mary? No.
I mean, the thing about your tattoo, though, people are going to say, naturally going to say, what is that? What is your tattoo?
Yeah.
Like, there was a guy, shockingly, I was at the beer garden at Farnsworth House last summer with my friend Justin, who went to BU, by the way, which I never really forgave him for that. But he's in the Baltimore orchestra. He's like a professional musician right now.
Yep.
So he comes up when I go down there. So we were sitting there one time, and he's like, "Hey, there's a guy sitting at the bar. He's got a John Wilkes Booth tattoo on his hand. You should go check it out." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Let's definitely go check it out." It wasn't Booth. It was Edgar Allan Poe. But it looked the same. But that's whatever. But that's it was interesting. But I think those are good though. I think those type of things are really, really solid.
Well, I think the cool thing about tattoos is the story behind them, like why you got it. And I told one of my colleagues this week, I was like, "Oh, I'm getting a tattoo," and they were like, "What are you getting?" And I told him, I said, "Oh, General Oliver Otis Howard." And he's like, "I've never heard of him before."
Well, that's really good.
And then I said to him, "Have you heard of Howard University?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "That's the guy."
You know what you should do? You should tweet that at them. I bet you they'd retweet that. You probably get some kind of hoodie or something.
I should.
Like the one
I already have a hoodie.
Well, they'll send you something. I mean, there's something. Who knows?
That's a good idea.
You know what would be good? The logo Allie did. The barn and a hat.
Oh my God. I was actually thinking of getting the logo tattooed. Like the barn and the hat. I was actually thinking of doing that on my shoulder for one of my tattoos.
Yeah, I get a tramp stamp with the barn and the hat. God, asking for it.
God. Allie B, you must get States rats gist.
I look, I didn't survive Franklin right there.
Andrea says Jeff designs coasters. Oh wow, that's really cool. And she says she's familiar with Coaster Tired.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's the adrenaline. It's like
it is.
It's like if you run like Jen Price, who runs these marathons, and like I said, I don't know who she's running from, but she's on the run all the time.
She's in the Howard School of Running.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've done 10Ks, and I used to run them every year for the longest time. And when you get done, the physical part makes you tired too, but the emotional part of finishing, there's that rush, right?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you just crash. And a lot of it's the physical, but a lot of it is the emotional. So I think it's the adrenalines, endo, whatever they call those things, endorphins.
Yeah,
I think that's a big part of it. But But anyway, about that Five Forks,
people were talking about actually. Just to mention, I think Ryan said his introduction to Shiloh was reading Shelby Foote's the book that he wrote about it. And
you know what's so funny?
I didn't like
that book. I hated that book. It was like a historical fiction. I don't say I hate it because that's a strong word. I didn't like it. I mean, there are so many good reads, and I'm not one of these dudes who has this insane hate for Shelby Foote. No, he's not a historian. I mean, he's good at what he does. I just didn't like that book. I thought his The Stars and Their Courses at Gettysburg was fantastic. His trilogy on the Gettysburg was great. I mean, the Civil War is great. I just didn't like the Shiloh book, and I just read it, and I was like, it was almost like I expected more when I finished it. It was just, I don't know. There's so many better books you can read on it. I think I was not a fan. That was one of the few Civil War books I read, and I'm like, I just got to get through this and swallow this and get it done and just never read it again. And that's what it was.
Anyway, the best historical fiction for me on Shiloh was Blaze of Glory by Jeff Shara, the one that begins his series in the Western Theater. It is really good. Audio and physical book are both worth checking out for that.
No, but there's so many good books. He obviously put it on a certain. I mean, he's obviously, you get with him, he's going to get the certain slants on it.
Yeah.
But there's so many good books you can read on Shiloh, and there's so many good things you can see on it. I just was disappointed. I think that was more the word. I was disappointed. Mm-hmm. The other book I read that I really could not stand was a book called I Am Abraham.
Oh,
and I got halfway through it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It was just brutal.
I struggled all the way through it. It was not good.
He has a whole scene of him in the woods doing some self-whittling, which I don't know why he put that. I don't know why why that's in the book. I'm like, okay, well, that's Okay. I just that was the only book I can think of in recent memory anyway that I stopped reading halfway through and never went back to it.
Yeah, no, it's not. That there is some really good Abraham Lincoln historical fiction out there. One is called A Friend of Mr. Lincoln by Stephen Harrigan about Lincoln's younger days. It
Mhm.
is so good. And the other one is it's a kid's book about Lincoln called Young Abraham Lincoln. And oh my God, the author's name is escaping me. And I met him in Springfield, and I've talked to him a couple times. It was an excellent book, and it's going to be a series. It was really, really good too.
Yeah, look, there's so many Lincoln books. Anybody who's been to the Peterson house, they got every Lincoln book stacked up. It goes all the way to the ceiling of all these books.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it. But yeah, but Shelby Foote, those, I mean, he got a big bump by being obviously in that Burns thing,
Yeah,
right?
that's what Jen R just said, that Chris said that's why he's so famous, is because of
Oh yeah, of course he is. But I mean, most people who, well, I mean, yes, maybe mainstream famous, but for a lot of the people who study the war and study that 19th century history know him because of the other stuff he's written. Because he does know his stuff. He just does. But he has a very matter of fact, lost cause way about him,
Mhm.
right? And he's off. Look, I get it. He's I think he's from Mississippi, I think, and
Yeah,
he
Nathan
and he
Bedford Forrest is his hero, apparently.
yeah, and so things like that, and he loves himself some Forrest. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But I think that book could have been better. It was almost like he had that contract with the publisher to do one more book, and says, "Fine, I'll do a Shiloh one."
Yeah.
Whipped it out, and just 2 weeks was over. It could have been so much better. I was just disappointed. But the Stars and Their Courses, though, that one, the one he did on Gettysburg, is really good. I like that one a lot. I just didn't like the Shiloh one.
Yeah, John P says that he's not a Shara fan. It's a little bit too lost causey. I do see your point on that, John. I enjoyed it because he writes both sides, and I feel like he's able to write the characters really, really well. Like, my favorite book by him is Smoke at Dawn, about Chattanooga, and love the Grant character in that. Grant is so fucking hilarious. His inner monologue and the way he talks to Rollins in it is hilarious. Sherman is really well written, but the other two that he does really well on the Confederate side are Claiborne and Bragg. And it's to show the two opposites that they had.
Yeah.
And like, Bragg is good to the point where he's annoying, and Claiborne is really good too. But it really puts you, to me, it kind of put me at the battle inside their heads. And now I know it's historical fiction, so it's not, what was actually going on, but it is a really good way to see them more as humans, that this is what was happening. And there's even, like, you see, he writes these characters with senses of humor. Like, Claiborne is actually, there's some parts where he's very, very sarcastic. He writes the friendships very well. Like, you see the friendship between Grant and Sherman. And you also see the friendship between Howard and Claiborne. And the thing that Shara does with that in the next book about the Atlanta campaign, he has Hardy as a character. And the chapter where Hardy finds out that Claiborne has been killed at Franklin, it nearly moved me to tears because of what he was feeling at the time. And that's the point where Hardy is like, this is enough. And then the chapter where his son dies is so sad. In the Shiloh book where Albert Sidney Johnston dies, it's actually, you're reading about Albert Sidney Johnston's death from his perspective. And the chapter just ends with, and then everything went dark. Like, it's from Johnston's perspective, and then it talks about how he starts to feel dizzy and he can feel himself falling off his horse and all that. So it's just a very human way to look at it,
No, that's what makes these books so much better anyway. I mean, a lot of times some of these historical fiction books are better than the real ones. There's that one, Lee at Gettysburg, is a real good historical fiction. Want to give about Gettysburg, and the one that we'll be doing next Wednesday, Mary, finally, Black Iron Mercy, we'll be talking about at our book club. I feel like this book was conceived of the publisher when we announced this guy was going to do this, But finally, we'll be doing this on Wednesday, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And so, hopefully, everybody's read that book, and if you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool too. But we just think it's a good book to kind of begin this. Then we'll do some more nerdy ones going forward.
Yeah,
we'll have the
Yeah, we've already got some ideas for 2022 as well.
Yeah, we do. And We certainly have some ideas for 2022. Some people who might be on this live probably be part of it, as a matter of fact. So,
Jen said, Jen said, I'm reluctant to finish my graphic novel about Lincoln's younger years. There's so much written. Sometimes I want to let the man rest. Jen, you've got to finish that. That is so awesome. Andrea Bragg was such a Karen. Oh my God.
he totally was. I mean, he totally was. Although he did well at Shiloh though. He did.
Yeah.
Hardy did well. I mean, there really wasn't too many off the top of my head blatant mistakes they made. I mean, Beauregard. I mean, but could you blame him for thinking they had this thing wrapped up the next day?
No, I don't. Like, I just finished Winston Groom's book about Shiloh, which is an excellent read. Anybody who hasn't read it, check out Winston Groom's book about Shiloh. It's really, really good. You're also putting out the bat signal with Albert Sidney Johnson and Ryan.
Well, we'll talk about that. But I think it's an interesting study, and a lot of that is it was who they ultimately had later. Mm-hmm. If they had a Lee or someone like that who would have taken the mantle, but they rolled through a clown car in the West. The Confederates did.
Oh God.
With the guys they had. I just think Johnson would have been better than any one of them. I think it was pretty obvious he was.
Yeah, and the ones that could have led and done it well either didn't want to do it or weren't selected to do it.
But there was a lot of generals who had really, solid quotes about Johnson after he died, about what a great general he was.
Yeah, like Jeff Davis said, we've lost. Yeah. And the thing too, they were friends as well. Did they go to West Point together, or did Albert Sidney go with Robert E. Lee to West Point?
Well, Lee was 1829, I think, to West Point.
Yeah, but Johnson went with either Jeff Davis or Lee. I'm trying to remember.
I think he was younger. I don't think he was. I could be wrong.
I think it was Jeff Davis, and that's how they became friends. But Johnston was one of, I think, the only ones that had a lot of military talent that Davis has him in charge. And you see after this, he's just he kind of tells Beauregard to fuck off because he doesn't like him, and then Davis is putting in men that he's friends with. I still don't get the Hood thing. I will never.
I think the Hood
John Bell Hood was one of those people that, when you're not managing a lot of things, you're good at it, but then when you have to manage the entire department, you're not.
I think the idea of an aggressive fighting general is appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And in Hood, you could say what you will about Hood, but he was aggressive. He was to a fault, obviously. Atlanta, friggin' Franklin. I mean, Nashville. Pick one, right?
Yeah.
He was aggressive, but if you're a Davis, that's what you want. Even though you shouldn't have,
Claiborne had aggressiveness to him as well, but he also had the ability to. I listened to a podcast about the Battle of Franklin, and they said whatever Claiborne needed to do what he did, he had it without having to go to West Point. Like he had it, and a lot of people don't realize that he did. But I think he would have been aggressive like Hood, but he would have went about it differently. I mean, could you imagine Sherman finding out, so who did they put in charge? Claiborne. Fuck.
Well, I think if they put, but again, that goes back. I know you minimize and you think I'm crazy, but a lot of that goes back to the Irish thing, Mary. I'm telling you, that was a huge thing back then.
I understand that it was. I just don't see it as much with Claiborne, the way he's respected by men like Hardee, and I think Albert Sidney Johnson,
right, but
and all that. I think it was
my whole thing. You're right. Look, no, you're definitely right with that. But I think that looking back, I think all his peers realized how good he was, but politically, to put an Irish guy in charge, I'm just telling you, it would have been bad for the North too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you weren't going to get Meagher, okay, or Kearney, okay, to control the army here in the North either, because there was so much irrational hatred towards the Irish at that time. It just was, but hey, here's a Thomas Meagher though. When we did our Irish thing a couple weeks ago in our trivia contest, I'm an Irish flag here. I'm still over here. You know.
I'm just looking at some of these comments. Davis was 2 years behind Johnson.
That's about alternative histories. My friend Roger, I don't know where the hell Roger's been. He must be working.
I know.
He keeps trying to get me to read that book, that What If the Confederates Won the Civil War? There's a picture of the White House, the Confederate flag on it. I'm not going to waste my time reading that shit. I'm just not going to do it.
No,
I mean, if I'm gonna read fiction, I'll read freaking Freeman. To be honest, you know. But for real though, I there's so many freaking books of like, obviously the ones that you've enabled me on, right? Yeah, you have. And I got that main book I just got. I got to read that one.
I know, the one where you.
I've actually read the one before. But I want to read it again. That's a pretty good book.
Yeah. Tony just said Five Forks. Yes, let's go back to Five Forks.
To the V Forks. Yeah, it's just funny how we go off the topic.
I know
here. But
these guys are great for hanging out with us though. For this,
let me just repeat the question again, Weeks. Make sure. What? I've missed something.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back here. Old Joe Johnson and Jeff Davis couldn't work together at all. That's why Hood got in there. That's one thing Alibi said. Right. Yeah, they absolutely couldn't.
But you know what though? So we'll talk Five Forks, because that's our jobs. That's what we do, right? Is when the battle actually started though, and this is where it's funny is you don't need to be a military historian to understand the basics. If you're a general and your boss gives you faulty plans, and expects you to succeed on those plans, and you still succeed in the face of those bad plans, you shouldn't be fired, right? No. And so when Sheridan gives him those orders that the Confederate battle line is 800 yards further east than it actually is, and you've got poor Sam Wiley Crawford wandering in the woods, lost like I was that day in the Rosewoods looking for that
swamps
monument, you know, like the clowns,
you
know. But you know right off the bat that they're gonna end up, you know, right off the bat. Ayers is he's getting hit on his left flank, and he's like, okay, I guess that's where they are. So him and Crawford, you know, and Griffin too, they end up having to go all the way around to that right side. You know, guys like Devin and the Custer and the cavalry guys. It was a good plan by Sheridan, though. It really, really was. You know, because when you look at the guys that the Confederates had in front, they were substantially outnumbered. But what was the job? For Warren to hit the Confederate left flank and get around into their rear, which is what he did. But because Crawford went way too far northeast, Warren has to go find him to get him back on target. And at that moment, Sheridan's looking for him. He can't find him. That's the final straw, you know, which was kind of silly in a way. It just really, really was.
You gotta. Oh, Mark. Hey, Mark.
Oh, and Paul's heading out. See you later, Paul.
Yeah, Mark just popped on from Gettysburg. Again, thank you for going to the Irish Monument.
Oh, hey, what's up, Mark? Yeah,
and he tagged me in a post the other day that had to do. It was on I think it was the Medal of Honor anniversary. Tagged me on Twitter about a Canadian, which was pretty cool in Civil War. So it was cool.
Canadians are everywhere. You could close that border.
We found Booth Fucker.
The guy who shot him's name was Boston. Just saying.
The guy who found him was Doherty, and he apologized.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can you please, sir? Can you please come out of the barn, eh? We don't want you to. Just please.
We got to get back because the Maple Leaf playoff game's about to end, and they usually end up early. So we got to get back. Got to get back to Toronto.
We have poutine.
Got to hit Tim Hortons. Go watch the Maple Leafs. You know, in Toronto, Mary, the Maple Leafs fall in the spring. No.
They do. You're saying that to somebody who fucking hates the Leafs.
Just say, but anyway. So, but it was what's interesting about this battle was, again, what were the things we talked about on the podcast? Communication and weather, like all of these, is what kind of really came back.
Yeah, because the rains and they can't move. But then too, the other thing that's happening as well is Meade is kind of messing up a little bit too with Warren, telling him on the day that White Oak Road is fought, he's saying, okay, we're not going to do anything today because of the fucking weather. Oh, by the way, if you could take the White Oak Road. So Warren's probably like, the fuck?
Well, the thing about and not to defend Pickett here, but he didn't know the results of White Oak Road when he's setting up his battle lines either. He's setting up those breastworks like these lazy, he's basically like having a disgruntled office temp set up the breastworks. Just drop a log, good, done. Because he's thinking we're going to be fighting cavalry here. So what's the point of setting up these friggin'? It was a waste of time.
When I was listening to it this morning, I'm like, my God, they're half-assing it.
They did.
Because they know at this point, and I think the one who saw it the most was at Bentonville, like Joe Johnston and Hardee, and they're like, this shit is done, but we sort of got to give a half-assed kind of, we'll try and slow you down, but we know you guys are going to win. And I think these guys are starting to see it here. But the one who's not seeing it, and we'll talk about this when we do our episode about the Jeff Davis escape and his capture and all that, that the politicians are still like, nope, we've got this. Jeff Davis escapes. He goes down to the Carolinas. He's giving a speech. He's like that dog with the coffee mug. This is fine. He's saying, don't worry, we've still got this. And meanwhile, it's like, you have generals like Joe Johnston, Hardee, and probably Pickett at this point that are like, we're done. Like, this is,
they were talking, even after Atlanta, there was that, a lot of the generals knew that the hunt was over. It's done, right? But the politicians wouldn't admit to it. And that's why, in my opinion, any death that occurred in the Civil War after Atlanta is a real waste of life. It just is. And I look at that Franklin battle we talked about.
Franklin was just
what a freaking disaster. I mean, on both sides, it never should have happened.
Franklin is the one episode that I cried editing.
And I'm not over states' rights just dying to this day.
It's not.
Because he'd still be alive today.
States' rights.
States' rights. Sorry, I can't come to work today. Went out drinking with states' rights last night.
States' rights.
Need to sleep in a little bit. Best name ever, by the way.
States' rights.
His
mom totally called him that from the front porch. Hey, states' rights, you get in here.
Has anybody seen states' rights? Tell them the street lights are on. It's time for dinner. Get inside. Tell me to shut off that damn Xbox. Get up here, states' rights.
Your dad wants to talk states' rights with
you. But the reality is, though, seriously, is it would never should have happened. Mm-hmm. And when you got to, when you have the one train rail line in and out of Petersburg, that South Side rail, that's it, right? Once that's gone, they were done. Because the whole thing was cut off. And this is where Uncle Blingy down there in Carolina.
Oh, I was just thinking that this is a direct
okay, sure. But that's where his campaign through the Carolinas is important after Fort Fisher and Wilmington, because he cuts off that route. So now you're bleeding them. It's like that Anaconda plan, right? Except it's on land. And now you're totally freezing them out because Lee still had numbers. And Johnson still had numbers. They had no supplies.
No,
right?
That's the problem. And that's been happening especially since Atlanta. Sherman is the one starting to slowly bleed them. And I think that's a huge connection to make between the Eastern and the Western theater is what he's doing on his march. He's starting to bleed them. Like this march that he's doing is having the exact effect he needs it to. And they're feeling it. It starts off very slowly, but then it just starts to really take off. And so the Grant is trying to bleed them, but they're bleeding internally as well. Like desertions are at an all-time high. Like people are just, soldiers like, fuck this. I gotta go.
Isn't it funny? Speaking of the desertions, like, and the one guy who comes across with Five Forks that I don't know if people realize how well he does here is Joshua Chamberlain, though, right? I mean, the number of Confederates he caught. There's that story where he caught a couple of hundred Union stragglers and got them to come back and fight. All I can think about is that scene in Gettysburg,
Yeah.
We're here to fight for each other. I don't think if he gave a big speech like that or not, but he did really well at this one at Five Forks as Chamberlain. And he was a general by that point because he had been hit earlier in Petersburg, the horrific injury that if you're a guy, you just get all chilly.
Oh, yeah.
He gets shot.
I can't even stand it. I don't deal well with I saw the surgery thing at the seminary museum, and I actually got a little bit dizzy because stuff like that just makes me. I can't stand the sight of blood or anything
so
like that.
he gets shot at Petersburg, and he gets shot through the hip, and it's actually a cool story in a way because he gets shot and he's down and he pulls out his sword and he sticks it in the ground and he props himself up and he's waving his guys, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And they see he's injured and he collapses. They think he's going to die. They make him a general because they think he's going to die. Make him a general, right?
Yeah.
He survives. He gets shot through the hip. They go to find the bullet. They take a ramrod and they stick it in all the way in from right to left, right? His urethra had been sliced, had been cut. There you go, right? And they basically hooked it back together with this tube, right? And for the rest of his life, and it leaked for the rest of his life, and eventually killed him. Actually,
nope the fuck away from that. Yeah, he was he not the last veteran to die of his war wounds?
That's they say. But they say his old days he always smelled like piss, like an old man. He just did. But that's the thing. But he survives that injury and he stays in the field. And so he ends up on this campaign with that 5th Corps. And now he's a brigade, he's a brigade commander in that 5th Corps. Yeah. And who's running the 20th Maine is that Walter Morrill, who was the head of Company B in Gettysburg, who went down the hill there and shot at Oates. They were running that Company B. That's who's in charge of the 20th now. So it's funny. You got Morrill running the 20th Maine, and you got Chamberlain running that brigade. But he survives that, and he ends up surviving that. Obviously, surviving 5 Forks. He's at Appomattox, and then he ends up being governor of Maine and all this other stuff. And he lives in 1914, I think it is, right around 1914. But his injury is what finally killed him.
Yeah. That is just amazing. I remember telling somebody in my family that they were like, well, when was the last one to die of his wounds? I'm like, Chamberlain, 1914. And they're
Allie,
like, how
sorry.
can you die of your wounds?
Al, you're eating. Sorry, it's urethra. URETHEA. Urethra.
I just figured out who States' Rights is. She asked who States' Rights is.
Oh, is it a band of States' Rights? States' Rights, yes, he was a real life guy.
His dad was heavily involved in Carolina's politics and was obviously very into it. Kind of like the people that in the 1970s named my dad knows somebody that named their kids after Russian space programs. So they had a kid called Skylab and Sputnik.
I have true story. There was a woman I knew who had kids who played hockey, and all of her kids, she had 4 kids. She had 4 boys: Vince, Nicky, Mick, and Tommy.
That's amazing.
And I was like, what? Honest to God. And if you don't know who those 4 people are, then you got some education doing your music. But that I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
I know who they are.
But I was like, that is awesome. That is, and it was even Nikki, Nikki.
That's awesome.
Whoa. I'm like, but anyway, it's pretty cool right there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, States' Rights, and he was killed at Franklin. He was one of the 5 that were killed at the Battle of Franklin, the officers. And Allie makes a good point here. She's like, imagine being the guy who dies on April 9th when Lee thinks he can get through the line at Appomattox Courthouse. Talk about a wasted life. And Wayne brought up a good point, and we mentioned this in our Bentonville episode. Hardy's son at Bentonville.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how that was for Hardy.
So just so you know, Nicky, Vince, Tommy, and Mick are the 4 guys in Motley Crue. Mick Mars, Tommy Lee, Vince Neil, and Nikki Sixx. So she named her kids up to the 4 Motley Crue band members. So I thought that was cool to think that this kid's name was Nicky and his middle name was Sixx, which I would have died. I'm going to change my name to Nikki Sixx.
Nikki Sixx. Warren was the Nikki Sixx of the AOP when he was.
He was that picture we did. I saw. I know. He was like
definitely Nikki Sixx. My God, that man. That Jordan's biography, like that early part of Warren's life, is just. It's like, holy fuck. He thought he was a legit rock star when he was.
Well, I was named after a musician, Mary.
I like Bobby Darin.
Bobby Darin. That's why it's spelled the way it is.
Beyond. I
remember. She goes, I remember telling her, why is my name spelled different? Because I could never get those little keychains at the store. It was always spelled wrong. She goes, "Were you named after Bobby Darin? That's why it's spelled." He was a singer I liked when I was pregnant, whatever. And I go, "Okay, well, he's kind of sucks, I guess." And she's like, "Well, just be glad I didn't like Elvis. I could be Elvis, Mary."
You could also be the artist formerly known as Darren with your symbol's going to be a moon with a beer can
moon
on
and
it.
a beer can. I know we talked about that. but God, but I think, with the Five Forks thing though, it's really, really cool the way it was handled. And we were saying before earlier in this, and then when we did the podcast a couple weeks ago, a couple days ago, I guess it is Pickett gets unnecessarily pissed on with this.
I'm seeing him completely differently now, in that this is a guy he's carrying around a lot of baggage. And I think it's all to do with the memory of Robert E. Lee. Lee admitted that Pettigrew Pickett Trimble charge was his fault. Gotta love PPT.
And by the way, real quick, we're talking Motley Crue. One of the all-time best live bands is Motley Crue.
I would love.
I'll put them. They are a top 3 band in my life anyway. I grew up at Motley Crue. They are live. There's this. I'm a metal guy. I like Metallica.
Oh, me too.
Shit. But I would say Metallica, Motley Crue. You cannot do better.
I would love to see them both. I was like one of the few 6-year-olds that was listening to like Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Motley Crue. Like, there was a couple of us in my grade 1 class that knew we would sing Paradise City all the time. The teacher would just laugh.
Oh, Guns. No, but Motley Crue. But Bobby Darin. Yeah, so there you go. So that's how it's named after with that. So that's pretty funny right there.
Yeah, Snyder said he named his dog Laika after the first dog to orbit Earth. That's cool.
Yeah, but God, naming kids after the Motley Crue, that's a whole new level of awesome right there. And she was exactly what you think she looked like. She was like this old 80s chick who just still thinks it's the 80s. One of those people.
That's cool though.
No, nothing wrong with her. She was very, very nice. It was just that, Tommy Lee's one kid, Vince Neil's another, Nikki Sixx is one. I don't know if Mick's middle name was Mars though, but I'm gonna guess he probably was.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. I want to get a cat someday. I want to get a cat someday and call it. I want to get a cat someday and call it Claiborne. Claiborne the cat.
That'd be cool. Mosby.
Yeah.
Claiborne. Schimmelfennig.
Schimmelfennig would would be Schimmelfucker.
But I had tickets to see Motley Crue at Fenway Park last summer. They were playing with Poison, Joan Jett, and Def Leppard. Speaking of one-armed people,
I saw Def Leppard a few years ago. They were amazing.
We used to play a game with my friends. We'd play Def Leppard songs. We used to call One Arm or Two. You had to determine if the drummer had one arm or two when they recorded the song, because he lost his arm in that accident.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's an amazing drummer though.
He was. But it's supposed to be rescheduled for this summer, so maybe I'll get to go. Who knows? But I'm gonna guess probably not.
I would love to be able to go see them. And Metallica.
I have Nikki Sixx's autograph on a beer bottle.
Nice. You've showed me that before, I think.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anyway, this part of the show brought to you by 80s music.
Well, we went off on a bit of a tangent there because of states' rights. But yeah, good
states'
points.
Rights, yeah,
good points made about the end of the war. About after Atlanta, any life lost is unnecessary, and it really begins with Franklin. Like all that, and just the potential, like what could have been done for reconstruction with some of those lives that were lost. Probably not states' rights, but.
You got to say it that way too.
I was talking to, I don't know who it was. I think we had my parents over for a barbecue one time, and I was like, "Did you know there was a guy named States Rats?" They didn't believe me.
Yeah, well, it's his real name was. I mean, that's the funny part about it was that he's fighting in the Civil War, which they were fighting for states' rights. And his name was, and he wasn't like he was a kid; he was an adult. So it's like
states' rights.
They must have Miss Cleo must have been the mother, because she must have seen the future, and that when she named.
Dad was clearly quite passionate about what he was doing.
That's probably what that was,
But yeah, getting back to the whole thing, I can't imagine, and I've mentioned this before, being Hardy. So your best friend gets killed, and you're like. That's probably what makes you make the decision about Savannah to say Franklin has just happened. We've just lost, not just one talented guy, but 5. we can't fight Sherman. Let's just fucking cut our losses, evacuate the dance floor, leave. And then you're fighting in one of the last battles of the Western theater and of the Civil War. And you see your kid brought by you on a stretcher and he doesn't make it. And he's 16 years old.
And he's fighting with the 8th Texas, and he never should have been there.
So heartbreaking. And Hardy hesitated to send him in, but his kid was like, I want to go. And maybe Hardy thought, okay, I got to let him go. The thing for me, with Bentonville, when I was researching it, is I found out that like Howard had been the kid's tutor at West Point. Howard knew the kid, and that death even really affected Howard. And that was like Howard in his memoirs writing about it is so sad. It's Stephen D. Lee that comes to tell Howard about it. It says Hardy's boy gone, and when Howard was at West Point, he spent a lot of time with the family and got to know the boy really well. And the one thing about Howard is he does write about kids he meets in his travels, like when he's staying at houses and stuff, and also African-American children that he talks to. And you can see he always mentions his own children too. So you can tell he's really, really missing them. But yeah, like the dad thing was very much a thing with Howard, but just that loss, I think, was really, really bad.
Well, that's the problem with this is so much. It's almost like, death was looked upon so differently in the Victorian era, right?
Yeah.
You had that good death thing. You had that, you died in front of family at peace with God and all that. That's how it was. And you got people, and it became so, it became like a Friday the 13th movie where it just became so like immune to it. But at that point, it's just sad. I mean, see, and obviously, but that's who the Confederates had, though. Look at the age of the people who were fighting on Sherman's march. They were kids, right, or old men.
Yep.
It wasn't a situation where you had the best army, because they were running out of guys. I mean, even going back to Chancellorsville, I mean, it was Lee's greatest victory, right? Mm-hmm. But he lamented the fact that, well, Hooker got away. We lost more guys in that whole Fort Stedman thing.
Yeah.
All it ended up being was less guys they had.
Yep, exactly. Every time they fought a battle, especially in this Appomattox campaign, and even the end of Petersburg, right? With Stedman, it's like, that's more men you're not going to have. Mm-hmm. Because, like, especially obviously if they're dead, but they're wounded, they're going to be out, and they're probably going to be out for the rest of the war. The thing, though, about Stedman, though, that we didn't mention was Abraham Lincoln was there.
Yeah, you know what though?
And to me, that story overshadows how important Stedman is.
I mean, yes. I mean, we didn't mention. I don't want to say by design, because if we did a whole podcast on Fort Stedman, of course you mentioned, we just kind of went through it, but some good rock talk going on right now. My favorite concert, my two best concerts, Mary, was I saw Queensryche play with Iron Maiden. That was a great show. And I saw Alice in Chains open for Metallica, which was great. And then about 5 years ago, I saw Motley Crue play with Kiss. I'm not a big Kiss guy. I don't like Kiss. I think that got overrated. But it was a great show, though. And I got my picture taken with a Gene Simmons reenactor.
That's cool.
And that was pretty.
I saw McCartney, and I saw the Beastie Boys about 2 years before MCA died.
My first concert was Cyndi Lauper.
Wow. Mine was the Beach Boys.
And I met Cyndi Lauper probably about 10 years or so ago at a work event.
Yeah.
And I said, I told you this. And I said, I go, you must remember me. And she's like, why? Really? We met? I go, yeah. Back in the day, I was in the balcony of the old Worcester Center waving. Oh, yeah, I remember. It was pretty funny. But Cyndi Lauper's really cool. She's a lot of fun to hang with, actually. That's pretty cool. I never saw Van Halen. No,
I've always wanted to see Van Halen too. Post-COVID,
the one concert. I know we're going off the rails here. The one concert musician I really regret not seeing was missing Prince. He was one I always wanted to see.
Oh my God, I would love.
He's the one that for the rest of my life I'm going to regret that I didn't see, because I had so many opportunities. I just never did it. I was big into the Purple Rain thing. I love that stuff.
I love
all his music, because I think, I'll tell you right now, Prince is the greatest musician this country has ever produced. And I will take that to my grave. The writing, the musician, his voice, all the instruments he played. He could play like 20 instruments professionally. He was like the Pettigrew of musicians, right? If you watch the Civil War thing. But I think no one, now you guys have Anne Murray. We can't compare to Anne Murray. Okay.
I actually love Anne Murray. We also, Allie K mentions Avril Lavigne. She's actually a favorite of mine too. Allie saw her in concert. I would love to see her in concert. Just one thing about Prince before we bring it back on topic, there's a really awesome tribute to George Harrison, and Prince plays the lead guitar. I think it is on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he kills it.
Yeah, I've seen that. When he died about 5 or so years ago now.
Yeah.
Ironically, he died on an elevator, which is like that Prince song,
Yeah.
Let's Go Crazy. But he, that was the one. That's the one I regret. I think Prince. I don't think there's anybody in this country. This country will never produce a better musician than Prince.
No,
I'll take that to my grave. And I'm a metal guy, and I'm right. But I will tell you right now that there's no one better. No one.
Oh yeah.
And you know what though? He's almost like ABBA in a way where you can't hate him. There's no one who hates Prince. Like no one hates ABBA, right? Same thing.
I love ABBA.
But you guys have Neil Peart up there. You did. He's gone.
We also have Carly Rae.
And you have Bieber.
Ew. No, you guys can have Bieber. That's fine.
No. But I'll tell you, I will tell you right now, no one will ever convince me otherwise. There's never been a better musician this country will ever produce than Prince. He was absolutely the Einstein of American music. He was.
He's brilliant.
Anyway, he was. You know where he wasn't? He wasn't at 5/4. So we'll try to get this back on the history talk here.
This is a good group of people we hang out with. They're so tolerant of
it's fun. It's fun.
Banter and all that.
And this overrated ones too. I mean, I think Kiss is overrated.
I do too. I'm not. I mean, one of my favorite bands is the Beatles, but I mean,
of course, don't get me going about how much I cannot stand Dave Matthews.
Oh,
don't get me going on that.
I'm not. No, I hate Dave Matthews. I love Nirvana. Like
Kurt Cobain.
Pardon? Yeah, Kurt Cobain.
I know it's mean, but I think we'll go back in the history though. But
we'll go back to the history here.
But I think it's fun because as we study Five Forks, and it's a progression of battles, and we've said before, all these little skirmish battles lead to a big one, and that's what's great about the Civil War. And the Civil War is basically a war of campaigns. That's how they have all been, right? So 22 Confederate armies, 16 Union armies campaigning against each other off and on. But this one, you have a small little battle, big battle. Yeah. But this was one. There was kind of unnecessary deaths in this one too.
I mean, like you said, start after Atlanta. It's all unnecessary, and I think it's like I don't think people look to Franklin enough to see that as being the most unnecessary thing that had to happen. And the men knew it. Claiborne knew that. That he knew this was it, and that the only way a lot of those guys did. But the only way Claiborne could get his men to go into battle was ride out ahead of them. To ride, he's out there with them.
Well, it's funny, but if it's Five Forks, that's what Sheridan did, right? Yep. And that's what Warren did. But
that was so uncharacteristic of Warren to do that. But that was after he got cut down, because Chamberlain arrives before Warren, because Warren is bringing up the rear of his army, and Chamberlain goes to see Sheridan and gets the full brunt of his bitchy mood, which is probably like dealing with me on a Tuesday night. And Chamberlain's like, "Where were you?" And or Sheridan's like, "Where were you?" And Chamberlain's like, we had to repair a bridge."
Well, I think,
and then he tells him like, "Oh, Warren's bringing up the rear," and he's like, "He should be out in front."
Well, I mean, he's probably right about that to a point, but I think Warren is that guy. It's like the episode of Seinfeld, right? When George pretends he's like disabled to get that job, they find out he's not, and they're trying to get him to quit, and they can't. Yeah. He knew they wanted him out. And I think every step along the way they knew. It's like when you go to you're in a job, or you're in a relationship, or you're in whatever the hell you're in, and you just don't want to be there, right?
Yeah.
But that someone's looking to just get rid of you, but they can't, right? Without cause, and you're walking on eggshells all the time. And I think that's how Warren was with this battle, because he was. But I wonder if he knew it, or he was. I know Chamberlain was tipping him off, but he was just arrogant enough to probably not give a shit. which you can appreciate it to a point, right?
Yeah. I think he knew a little bit more because he seems a little bit more unlike the Warren that you see leading up to this. And there's one thing that he does. He goes out to check his lines. And someone sees him and tells Sheridan, and Sheridan's like, he doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust the positioning. Warren is going out to check the lines to make sure the Confederates are where that Sheridan has said they are, because of what he learned from Gettysburg. Like he's carrying that with him. He's checking them like any good commander should. But then Warren does the most uncharacteristic thing. Once he gets Crawford turned around, he grabs the flag and he's like, this is the last battle of the Civil War. Let's fucking go. His horse gets
he saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, Crawford's an interesting cat too, though, because what's interesting about Crawford, right? He was at Fort Sumter with Robert Anderson. And so he was there with the bombardment when Beauregard, call him, was firing on Fort Sumter. So he's at the end. He was a lot like Pegram. We talked about Pegram too, where he was at the John Brown raid. But what's his name? Crawford. He wasn't at Appomattox because he went back to Fort Sumter to be there because he wanted to raise the flag again. So he was there at the beginning and the end of the Civil War. But Crawford didn't ingratiate himself with this battle. But he didn't do it at Gettysburg either. I mean, he was the one who, he had McCandless and he had Fisher, and he was on Little Round Top, and he was that last wave that came in on the wheat field that finally stopped. But he was that reserve one. But he has that statue right down there. But he was not somebody who, although he has that one good story though, where he's at Gettysburg and he's riding down the hill and with the flag, and the flag bearer was pissed because he wanted to carry the flag. So the flag bearer was running along the side of Crawford's horse, holding the flag while he was running down like a little kid holding his mother's dress. But that's how that was. But he was there at the beginning and the end, as was Pegram. And so when you could tie that together with him, where Pegram is at the beginning with the Brown thing, but he gets killed at the very end. It was his first ever injury.
And he thought it was like ordained by God, the whole Civil War thing, and that,
a lot of them thought that. Jackson thought that too.
Yeah, religion was completely different in the South than what it was in the North. You see that with how Howard's treated versus Jackson. They're probably the two most religious men in the Civil War. And Howard,
it's ironic you have a tattoo of a religious guy in your arm, considering you're going to burst and hit by lightning if you walk into the church anytime soon.
Truth. But Howard's story and how he decided to fight in the Civil War and do the army thing it's an interesting one too. And he talks about it in his memoirs, where he was thinking of joining the ministry, and his wife was like, Elizabeth was like, fuck that noise, I don't want you to join in the ministry.
Free State of Jones, that's a good movie.
That is a good movie. But
it is a little over the top. Every single time something good happened, Connie would go, all right. All I could think about is him driving that horse going, I'd rather be driving my Lincoln.
My mom recently got a Lincoln, and I got in the car, and she brought it over, and she's like, you got to come see this. And she loves the Lincoln commercials with McConaughey in them. And so I got in the car, and I'm like, all right. And I like, they didn't always pay me to drive a Lincoln. She's like, stop it.
But it is a good movie though. I mean, it's historic accurate to a point. But again, it's a movie. Take it for what it is. But hey, I'll watch any Civil War movie. I liked what the hell did we watch that one? Copperhead. That was a good one.
Copperhead was really good. We've watched Andersonville, Lincoln.
What's a good one is that Field of Lost Shoes. Have you seen that one?
That's one we need to watch. The other one too we need to watch when it comes out is News of the World. It's about.
Oh, is that the one with was it Hanks?
Yeah.
Poor Tom Hanks gets himself in trouble with every single movie.
I love Tom Hanks. He's my favorite. Every single movie.
But that movie, I've seen all those, and I've seen like The Horse Soldier and all those old.
I have not seen The Horse Soldiers yet, and that's one of my my mother watches it all the time. That's how she knows who Sherman is.
Like Gone with the Wind, obviously. That's
the first Civil War movie I saw. I watched it with my dad because that is my dad's favorite movie.
I will say my all-time favorite pop culture Civil War TV movie, anything, is the one episode of The Twilight Zone called The Passing.
I still need
that
to watch
one
that.
episode is you watch that and you don't get a little misty watching that. I don't know what to tell you.
I need to watch it. Remember, I tried to watch it the one afternoon and I couldn't. Like,
Mhm.
I can't get it in Canada for some reason because it's fucking Canada.
No.
And so yeah, I need to watch it once I go stateside again. I need to watch it.
But that episode of the Twilight Zone, the I think it's called the passing of the road.
It is.
I think that's what it's called. But those guys walking on the road, that is so good. Oh my god, really good.
Snyder said, when are we doing a Civil War Breakfast Club movie screening Zoom meeting?
We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about doing a couple movie nights.
When the summertime, when it gets a little warmer out, we can maybe we can pick about that. We can pick a movie.
Yeah.
We have talked about that. We kind of did that last year a little bit too, but we didn't have
we didn't have a hashtag or anything. Yeah. Like I think we had a hashtag or whatever, kind of like History at the Movies does, something like that. But yeah, like that would be, I think, a fun thing to do sometime. Yeah, we definitely talked about doing it during the summer just because it's nicer out and pick a couple movies.
Class of Six. I've not seen Class of 61. That's one that I've heard about too.
Yeah, I've
heard of that one. You know who graduated first? Class of 61, West Point Mary.
Oh my!
We talked about this.
I know who graduated last.
I
know who graduated last. Custer.
Who graduated first? Patty O'Rourke.
Oh, fuck.
Yep. There you go. Maybe this time they'll remember. Because I've said it to you before.
Andrea just called Ryan Lucky Charms.
Oh.
Anyway, just the story I was talking about before about how Howard came into the Civil War and how he's going to join the ministry, and the Civil War broke out, and that's when he realized he had his kind of, okay, this is my calling right here, and he didn't join the ministry, which I'm sure Elizabeth was like, fuck, thank God, but that's why he joined, because he felt it was for him a sign from God that he was meant to help bring the country back together and fight in this war. And he said that he never went into battle scared. He went into the first battle he fought in. He said he was scared. And then he recognized that whatever happened would happen. And he went into it not scared anymore. And I've mentioned that on Twitter. I've had a few people respond to me and say, he's bullshitting, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, how can you say that about him?
Uh-huh.
Like, if that's how he felt, if he went into every battle not scared, but feeling that whatever he was doing was in God's hands, who he had 100% faith in, like, that's insulting to Howard's memory right there. If that's how he felt going in, and I'm sure Stonewall felt the same way. We don't know how these men felt, but if that's how Howard felt, if he said, I was scared once and then I recognized that this was in God's hands.
Well, if you have that attitude, if you believe that this is all preordained, then what's going to be a fear? It's like the end of the movie, the Gettysburg movie. With Longstreet, when he gets done, they tell him to get off the damn horse. The Lord will come get you in his own good time, but it's
Hallie, could it be his come to Jesus moment? It was.
Literally.
I'm sure his wife was quite happy about it too, because he writes in his memoirs, she was having nothing with him joining the ministry. She was like, no, I don't want you to. This is not, no. Probably because he was probably like anybody else, right? Like more suited to army life. He needed that kind of, that structure, and she was obviously okay with it. Just like,
well, I mean, church at the time back then, I mean, that was the social thing. That was the entertaining thing. You went. There was no TV. There was no ESPN2 to watch. So there was nothing to do. So you couldn't watch it. That was what it was. I mean, plays were the same way. But we were in a small rural town like Leeds, Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, going to church on a Sunday, not just to compare clothes like people do now, but back then, that was probably where you did most of your social interaction, where you got most of your education. I mean, so you can see why somebody would probably want to get into that type of field, because it gave you an opportunity to kind of to talk and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot different. Look, it's a lot different now.
Yeah, it is a lot different. Ryan Howard, I was scared once, then I remembered I could run away. He's got a German flag. Fucking poor 11th Corps. God. I can't imagine being Howard and being at Gettysburg and just thinking, fuck this thing at Chancellorsville.
Well, you know what though? We talk about this a million times about the reputation, right? Of how it's a small world, even then. So you talk about like guys like Howard, or the one like George Lamb Willard we talked about before. Yeah. The Harper's Ferry Coward. So he literally gave his life, and as did Richard Garneth. because they didn't want to be considered cowards anymore. But Willard, he leads his troops against where the First Minnesota Monument is now. And the First Minnesota, it's no offense to Colville and those guys, they did great work, but those New Yorkers, and I hate New Yorkers, Mary, you know how I feel about New Yorkers, but they deserve a lot of credit for what they did. And he paid with his life because he felt he had to redeem himself from what happened at Harper's Ferry. Similar to what Garnet had at Kernstown at Gettysburg, right? And the same thing with Howard probably did. Because Howard thought that. He says everybody thinks we're freaking cowards. And we mentioned the East Cemetery Hill on July 2nd that, the artillery guys were told that the 11th Corps is probably going to run if it gets bad. So you're on your own. And this is before it happened. It's
crazy. And I think that a little bit of that factors into Warren as well at Five Forks, where he's found out that Sheridan has said, like, angry he wasn't at the front. And Warren's like, fuck that. And whatever if the bullet had been higher and didn't hit his horse, it could have hit him. But then there was that Wisconsin guy that, as Howard falls from his horse, jumps out in front of Warren falls from his horse. This guy from I think it's the 7th Wisconsin, jumps out in front to save Warren and takes a bullet, gets wounded. Like Warren could have died right there. And it would have been for the same reasons that Garnett ends up dying. Claiborne, even in some, Albert Sidney Johnson's a bit different. He's not doing it to prove a point. He's doing it because he sees the men not rallying. And he's thinking that if him and Isham Harris, and there was another guy they were with, if they go out and rally, then people are going to follow them and say, like, I'm going to be out in front with you. And that's what cost Albert Sidney Johnson his life.
Andrew says, who is the title, the biggest coward of the North and the South? It reminds me of a story, Gettysburg story, one of Perrin's brigade on the first day at Gettysburg. And he's up, there's a guy up front and he gets hit or something. And it wasn't bad, but he goes running back for the lines, running something towards the back, yelling, I've been killed. And he's running back. And one of the colonels yells one of the medical guys, go get that man a stretcher. Go catch that dead man if you can catch him. The guys like that. There's probably a million different stories, but there's another good story of, speaking of Gettysburg, where there was a guy who wrote about Cemetery Hill, where he was writing home. This is after the battle. And he said we were stationed in a cemetery and there was artillery flying and all kinds of stuff. And the mother writes back, well, I hope you were brave and you weren't hiding behind the gravestones. And he responded back, we couldn't, because that's where all the officers were hiding. So there's a lot of that. I mean, I think there's a lot of valor with this, but there's also a lot of humanity with this. That's
the thing. The humanity is the word I would use, I think, over cowardice. I have a tough time picking who I would name as the biggest coward, because you look at somebody like Rosecrans, who has really good success. He's very talented at Stones River and Tullahoma, and at Chickamauga, he clearly, by this point, he has PTSD and he's not himself. It's a great question, but I can't label anybody as a coward in this, because I wasn't.
Well, Jen has a good one with James Ledley.
Ledley.
That's a good one.
But too, the other thing too is, like, what were these men going through by this point?
Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing to remember, is you have somebody like Rosecrans. He's at Stones River and he's out riding the lines, and his best friend gets his head blown off by a cannon. He's like, okay, we'll keep going. And he keeps going, and he manages to keep going until Chickamauga, and he breaks down. And that's why I have I don't know if I can label anybody on either side as a coward in this.
Well, you have that certain type of, attitude, like the Muppets, moving right along, no matter what happens, just keep going. But you do break after a while.
Yeah. And men like Grant and Sherman, and Meade, Claiborne, the ones that, Claiborne, he doesn't really make it to the end, but I don't think Claiborne would have had any, I don't think that would have happened to Claiborne. They somehow managed to keep it together a little bit better than, I shouldn't say better, but Rosecrans reached his breaking point at Chickamauga, and you mix what you see happening at Stones River in with lack of sleep and realizing, holy fuck, I could lose Chattanooga, and then you see a sea of blue coming at you and you're like, why are my men running at me? And then you see the gray and you're like, oh my God, it's Longstreet.
Yeah.
Like you have this breakdown, and I don't see Rosecrans as being, he's not a coward. And Lincoln's comment, I used to find it funny, and now I see it as more of a just
Ledley's a good one though. That is
it
a good
is,
one.
yeah.
I mean, it is. You just got to give props to them for Chris and Jen and that, because that's a good one. But then, I mean, but you know what though? I mean, I'm not sure about because it's tough to say, because you can make a case that Hooker was cowardice at Chancellorsville. You don't know what's going on with that, because he's got all kinds of possible concussion issues, and then there's always the drunk thing, which who the hell knows? Was Iverson coward at Gettysburg? Was that? It's tough to say. Ledley's tough. That's a tough one to get to justify. That's one.
And it was Chris that suggested that. So good for the two of them for.
That's a good one actually.
Jen and Chris, we're really glad you're watching too. It's
nice you guys came back.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You must have taken the old Pony Express to get where you guys moved to. It took you guys forever to get there.
Jen moved to Ohio. Chris lives in Ohio. I know. There's good people there. Chris is a good person. Chris is awesome. Anyway, we'll just go away from that one.
I've been in Ohio a few times.
Hey, there's Cedar Point, which is where I get roller coaster syndrome whenever I go.
I will say though, I do like Cincinnati, Mary. The city of Cincinnati.
I do like Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati, and Cleveland. Cleveland is cool too, and Sandusky is really cool. That's where Johnson's Island is, and that's
where Tommy Boy was set.
Yep.
Right. No, Cleveland's a cool city. Our friend Ashley, her husband works there. Baseball player for the Indians. That's cool.
Yep.
But I think Cincinnati is a very underrated city. I think that's pretty cool.
No, it is. Cincinnati's really cool, and that's where Hooker's buried. That's where Lytle's buried as well. Claiborne started off his life in America in Cincinnati, which I always find very interesting. That he, that's where I wonder, had he stayed, would he have fought for the North? Because his brothers settled up in Wisconsin, and they fought for the North.
Yeah.
And he had half brothers as well that settled in that area, and they fought for the North too. And I think he had a couple siblings that fought for the South. Where they settled, they fought, which is, Ryan was talking one time on our roundtable about how you get passion on either side, right? Like wherever you are, you're going to fight, and you're going to fight 100% in.
You're talking a Boston guy here. People fight for the friggin' sake of fighting here. You kidding me?
I know. Hey, a bar fight was how we got our country. Is the joke
That's
here.
True. That's true.
We got our country in a bar fight, Snyder had a really good suggestion about doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style of movie night.
Just rip on some movie.
Like just really bad Civil War movies. We talked about doing that with our first episode of listening to it and recording our reaction.
What do you the worst Civil War movie is? Which one do you think is the worst?
The worst?
I mean, Gods in General gets pissed off, but I mean,
probably that one with probably that one with Jason Robarbs is Lincoln, or the Ironclads, or there's one about Dr. Mudd too, which is pretty cringy.
What about that? What the hell was that movie with oh God, I'm blanking on it now. Never mind.
Okay, you'll think of it. That one. I don't know.
Cold something.
Cold Mountain.
Cold Mountain.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan. It was okay. I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater. Yeah, I think it was Cold Mountain. That Jim says too, I can't label anyone who fought in the war as a coward. The war was an awful bloody mess. For 4 bloody years they slotted it out. As we were told in customer service training, you don't know what the other person's going through, and everyone has bad days. In this case, the Civil War bad days can be exceptionally bloody mistakes.
Yeah, that's where it's tough to.
Yeah, that's where like Hooker gets labeled as being incompetent at Chancellorsville. Meanwhile, it's like, how would you do after you got hit with something and were concussed? Howard in the 11th Corps are labeled as, cowards for what happened at Chancellorsville, as well as at Chancellorsville, but that's miscommunication. Like all these men are just, the title of coward, that's why I have such a tough time with it, because we don't know what they were going through. And I really
and you're also going
Rosecrans.
by the interpretation of who's saying that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If you read Von Gilsa's after battle account about Chancellorsville, of course he's going to throw Howard under the bus.
And so there's always a determination about like who said what at the time. That's why you got to read as much as you can. But that's where the diaries come back and haunt you, though, is because you get their firsthand. Like Charles Wainwright's diary, the artillerist in the Union, he takes a bare piss on everybody. I mean, because he never intended his diary to get published, so he was very honest about what he felt about everybody. It's probably one of the better ones. It's one of the probably top 5 diaries that exist in the Civil War is Wainwright's, but that's what you're going to get. You're going to get their personal thing, and sometimes that personal opinion becomes fact. If you get someone like a Fonz or a Coddington or any of them to take a diary and write it, it has a way of becoming fact. And there's so many miscommunications and so many misinterpretations, I think. But that's the way. But that's what's good about history, though. It makes it fun. History is supposed to be fun, Mary.
Exactly. Okay? And
this is why I don't know why you're always in a bad mood, because it should be fun. You should not be grumpy. Hence your name. But seriously though, oh God! But it's supposed to be fun, because it's why, even though it's past and it's names and it's dates, it's not black and white, and it's always interpretation, and it's supposed to be fun. It's research. It's fun.
But it's also the human aspect too. I mean, it's funny looking at Bragg post Chattanooga or post Chickamauga, seeing he could have had that city, and meanwhile he's like having it out. He's fighting his own war with his commanders, Forrest, Polk, all of them, and then they signed that petition to have him removed. As well, like, look at with Five Forks, looking at not just, if you're going to use Grant as your source for Five Forks, you're not going to get a clear picture of what happened, because he's underplaying Sheridan's fuck ups and he's inflating Warren to the point where he's seen as very negative to deflect away from Sheridan, because Sheridan and Grant are friends. And I mean, like I said, we don't hate Grant, but his, like, it's a historical memory thing, right? And that's what makes it fun, is finding out about these, like, oh, there's this going on, so now you see this differently.
Right? Exactly. And so if you read one slant of it, you think that's the way it is. I think too many people in society nowadays read one thing. I think that's the truth. It's the difference between the headline versus the comments on the internet. It's the same concept. You read as much as you can, but it's fun though. But that's what's great about this, is that it's all interpretation, right?
Yeah.
And that's why when people fight on the internet about history, blah, it's so stupid, because
it is.
That's like fighting over. I mean, it's people think history is science, where it's a binary equation, and it's just not. There's so much interpretation. At the end of the day, you're fighting over what your favorite ice cream flavor is. In a lot of cases, it is.
Exactly. It's not written down anywhere that Rosecrans had PTSD. But if you just look at him in the bubble of Chickamauga, of course you're going to see him as a horrible commander. But if you go back and look at Stones River, look at Tullahoma, and look at what happened to him, and look at what is happening to him in the lead up to Chickamauga, I do believe, it's just my opinion, I do believe he had PTSD and he had a breakdown, and that's what happened to him. And it's tragic. And he gets, because of that, that's what he's remembered for, and that is like, Grant is able to do what he does. Sherman's able to do what he does in the Western Theater because of the steps that Rosecrans and General Thomas took. And the two of them get thrown under the bus.
Now, if someone's going to go totally off the deep end historically and say things that are just completely ludicrous, then,
exactly.
Okay, it's a different story. Andrew mentioned the whole slavery thing, and she's right about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm talking about, the Grant versus the whole, versus Rosecrans and all the comments. That type of thing. It really depends on what side you fall on. But if you read both, you'll find the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle with these.
Yeah. Right? And don't be afraid to read between the lines and make your own interpretations and say, hey, this could have been the case. That's what we did with Rosecrans. We researched, we were looking at Stones River, and both of us came to the conclusion, holy shit, this guy probably had PTSD by the time he got to Chickamauga, and he just couldn't handle it. And that's why, like I said, the comments that Abraham Lincoln makes, confused and stunned like a duck head in the head, I used to find those funny, and I don't find them as funny anymore because I'm trying to look at what Rosecrans might have been going through.
You know, sense of humor has been lacking lately anyway, so of course you know.
Fucker.
Too funny. But it's true though. But it is true. I mean, it's these people who I guess, but you know what though, isn't taking a position of complete borderline ignorance and holding forth to death, isn't that what Twitter is anyway?
It is. It's
I mean, isn't it though?
If you can't, you've got to, when you study history, to me, you've got to be able to have an open mind and be able to change your opinion. Like, I mean, I forever was making like shad jokes about Pickett, and I see that as being completely different now because of the point you made in our podcast and just researching that. Holy shit, some of this needs to fall on Fitzhugh Lee as well. If we're going to blame,
he should be. Truth be told, Fitzhugh Lee should. I mean, granted, he wasn't the.
Yeah.
I mean, Pickett was in charge, okay, but Fitzhugh Lee was the one who gets complete. I bet you, if you ask the average person who who studies this, who do you think is who's talk Shadbake, talk to me, Pickett, bang. Who else was there? Nobody. It was just him.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how it is, but that's fine. That's why you gotta study this stuff too. That's why it's fun, you know.
Yeah, it is. No,
what's going on, Jay? Welcome to jumping on.
Jay. It is a lot of fun, and I do see a lot of people that they get cut down for their opinions on Facebook and on Twitter and all that, and that's just not fair. Like, it's
you step in it a lot, actually. Speaking of Twitter,
with Howard,
but you put yourself out there though with Howard.
I do, and I put myself out there with Warren last week, and I gave my opinion what I thought of Warren, and I had a couple people respond to me and say, like, you do know he deserved this, right? And I just said, I'm like, well, that's fine, but I don't think he did. Like, Warren was a prick, but he did not deserve to have basically his career ended because of some kind of personal thing that Sheridan and Grant had against him. Like, yes, Warren was guilty of questioning his, orders and kind of using them as guidelines, but I don't think he does this he does it at Five Forks. He's a little bit of a different Warren at Five Forks. And I think Warren's an asshole, but guess what? So was Sheridan.
It was. Hey, Jay, it's always good to see another traveler on the site. Welcome.
Nice.
Great to see you on here. But no, it's fun though. But that's the thing is you see people, and you've seen this too, especially recently. We got done with Kernstown. You going at that one dude about that one.
It's pathetic.
But but again, it just goes to show it's the people with those blinders on, and sometimes they just don't want to know. And you know what? I've said before, history, it's the thirst for knowledge. It's that never-ending education of learning more. And sometimes your opinions can change, right?
Yeah,
I knew a person who was a huge Sherman girl, and then she was an IPA girl, and now she's a Howard girl. So it's kind of moved on, right? Now you're going to tattoo them. If you went back in time 3 years ago, and someone told you you're going to have an Oliver Otis Howard tattoo on your arm, what would you have said?
Laughed and said, what are you talking about?
I mean, I'm just saying things change, and that's why it's gonna be even funnier in 3 years from now when you hate Howard. You suck with that tattoo.
But the funny thing about, I still love Sherman. He's still one of my favorite generals. There's so much about him, and I just feel more, especially in doing this podcast, and since I've been talking to you, I want to talk about more of the underdogs and let their stories be told and let them have a voice in the Civil War, like Rosecrans, even Bragg, to show what he did at the beginning, because men like Grant have to get to where they are because of other people.
Sure they do.
And that point really hit me when I read in Howard's memoirs as he's traveling out west, to fight Chattanooga, that he is recognizing we're holding Chattanooga because of Rosecrans. And I treat the whole, like, the hate thing against Howard a lot like Howard treated the hate against him. I'm like, I'll have some snarky response sometimes, or I'll be like, whatever, and just walk away from it and I don't question who my favorite general is.
I mean, look, the reality is, do you like Christ?
Exactly.
People like who the hell they want to like. Imagine someone ripping on someone because of someone they like. I mean, for friggin' sakes,
I got ripped on for Sherman. I get ripped on way more for Howard.
Now, do I have problems with people who don't like BC hockey? Yes, and that's justifiable.
Hey,
okay?
At least I do.
Well, you do. You come around, but I mean, but for real, but seriously though, it makes no sense. And when you did your whole thing with Howard last summer, last winter, that whole thing came out.
Yeah.
That was hilarious because I thought it was a joke until I realized the number of people who were coming at you with like serious daggers. I was like, what is fucking wrong with these friggin' people?
I got a couple DMs that said like, you're a changed person because of this, and I don't know who you are. I'm like, fuck, like seriously?
Well, you are kind of a little bit on certain things, you know. But that's what's fun about studying this, though. Like I said, Five Forks is a great example to bring it back to that. Is the more you study it, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more your perception changes. And that doesn't mean you're right or wrong, or we're right or wrong. It just means that you have an opinion about it, but it's an informed opinion, right? And then things can change. I mean, history might come out 5 years from now. There could be a primary document that comes out and says that Pickett and Fitzhugh weren't even at the Shad Bake.
Exactly.
It was a big lie. And then it's just that would change everything. Maybe they were looking for the Holy Grail. Maybe they found it. Maybe that's exactly what it was.
You chose wisely, but Pickett did not choose wisely.
George, you chose poorly. You know, but I mean, but that's what's great about history is it's always evolving, and never get too set in your ways because you can never change.
Yeah, you can change, and I mean, it's okay to change who your favorite is. It's okay to change your opinion about how you interpret a battle or whatever. You know, I completely changed my opinion about Rosecrans after looking at Stones River and seeing things from like a different perspective and looking at what happened to him and how that might have affected him personally. Jen R makes a good point. Oh God, the folks that ripped on you for Sherman found their way to my DMs. Like, get the fuck out. Yeah, I feel so bad if that's happening to you, because the other thing about Sherman too is if you look at the March to the Sea, and people are like, the entire state of Georgia was on fire and he pillaged and like whatever the fuck else.
Well, you've been down there talking to these people.
I have, and so have you. But the thing to remember at the March to the Sea that never gets mentioned, and this includes going to the Carolinas, so from Ringgold Gap, which in my opinion is where the march began, all the way to the Carolinas, the lives that were saved because he's not fighting battles like Shiloh every step of the way or whatever. The lives saved. He did it as a life-saving measure for both sides, as well as to start breaking the Confederacy. And that also was the way Sherman waged war. That was the best way he knew how to wage it. He was not a guy that was, he's not like Grant in battle. I mean, Sherman has his talents. The March to the Sea, the number of lives that were saved because of him, and that never gets talked about. And the people that are probably ripping on Jen about Sherman, I feel sorry for her, because first of all, she's an awesome person. She doesn't deserve it. You should never be ripped on for who your favorite is at all. But
I think it'd be fun to take old Chris here to a bar like Montana's down in Atlanta, dressed as Sherman.
Oh God! Okay. Or the Rough and Ready.
I will wear my 28-3 Patriot T-shirt, and he can wear his outfit, and we'll just sit there and watch these friggin' people. Because when I was there for the Super Bowl, oh my God, a few years ago, you want to talk about literal. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, that'd be fun. That's something to consider as it is. But
no, but you look at the way these people's, like, even just in our group alone, like Jacob is starting to change his opinion about Bragg and see him differently as well. There's some comments here just to read. I know we're going to jump off here soon. Snyder, he burned my great granddaddy's farm in Ohio just last week. Swear to God, George is still on fire. Well, the other thing too, when I mentioned about, Howard actually did well in the Western theater, the people that are like, Howard is only Chancellorsville, they start like, what? It's like,
well, there's some people who only focus on certain things. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, most people have their binkies, right? They focus on Gettysburg or Antietam or Vicksburg, and if you study the whole thing, it makes so much more sense. And as you study the whole thing, you see how all these dominoes fall and lead into other things, right?
Yeah.
But that's what's cool about it. It's fun. I mean, Howard. I mean, I'm Team OO. Don't get me wrong, okay? But I can acknowledge he failed and he they all did. But I can acknowledge he did good things though. I still don't get the Gettysburg hate for Howard. I don't get that.
I don't either. And I don't get how you can revere a man like Stonewall who fucks up at fucking Kernstown and then hate Howard and only see Chancellorsville. Like, what if we just viewed Stonewall for getting stuck in a fucking tree and messing up?
Well, if Stonewall's history was Kernstown, that'd be it. If and so stuff like that. But
Jen says the thing with Chris has to happen.
Oh God, can you imagine
God, that would be so fun.
Yeah, can we get 2 beers, please? Fuck you two. It was funny. I've told the story before, but we went down there a couple of years ago. We and our friend Bill. So we're sitting at this bar. It's called Montana. It's the local place right downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's the only place we can get into at the time. So we're sitting there. And of course, I've got my freaking Kepi hat on and a Sherman t-shirt. Full dickhead, right? Sitting at this bar in Atlanta, right? And no one said, one or two people at most said anything. Most people didn't. And I'm sitting there and the bartender goes, "Oh, okay, well, and I had commented. I said, so the one time I go, this city looks pretty new, Atlanta. I go, it's an old city, it looks brand new. He goes, yeah, because you assholes burned it. But then the next day I wore my 28-3 Patriot t-shirt, and you would have thought I freaking peed at the Vatican or something, right? I mean, people were like, how could you wear that? I was like, I'm like, I wore a Sherman shirt yesterday. No one said, one person, maybe two.
I wore a Sherman shirt to a winery in Georgia, and I got a few looks. And then I deliberately wore it because I knew I was going to the Claiborne statue, and I posted a picture, and then I put it on Twitter, and I said, so I thought these two needed a reunion. Guess who's
I remember
not
that
laughing?
picture.
It's not. I'm like, Claiborne's probably laughing right now, and the other guy isn't. But it was just so fun to go do that, like to know the rivalry between the two of them. I think it was more from Sherman's perspective, as I said earlier, but just to stand there, and I'm like standing there with my Sherman shirt on next to Claiborne statue.
Oh, it's that day I had the 28-3 t-shirt on. We went to the NFL Fan Fest thing before the Super Bowl, and you can get your picture taken with the Atlanta Falcon cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And of course, I might have had a couple of beers that day, so I got in line to do it. And I had a hoodie on. And as soon as I got there was a big line. And as soon as I got to the front, I took the hoodie off with that t-shirt. And the whole all the Pats fans were like laughing. And I heard one of the cheerleaders go, "Are you fucking kidding me?" But she took the picture like a champ. And I had it as my profile picture on Facebook there.
I know. That picture is really awesome. Isn't that the picture you used for Rough and Ready?
Yes, I did. That was
Claiborne on one side, but on the other, and Sherman in the middle.
In the middle. That was fun. Atlanta's a fun city, but Philly Eagles. Okay. Yeah, so that was fun. But I guess we probably wind down. It's getting late. It's
12:30. This has been a great time. Oh my God.
It always is. I got some stuff to do. I got some stuff. I got to burn some wood today. I got some stuff I got to burn today. And 1 o'clock today. 1 o'clock today. College hockey starts. It's St. Cloud plays Boston University, so go St. Cloud.
Well, I'm definitely going to be watching that game.
Well,
we have our book club on Wednesday.
We do. So we always do coming attractions. So coming attractions, we're going to be doing Shiloh Part 1 on Tuesday night, and we'll see what kind of hornet's nest of a mood you're in, as you usually are. And you remember one time that you're going to live with that for the rest of your life.
I know. Whatever.
But then and then we have the book club on Wednesday. So anybody who hasn't signed up for the book club, it's a great opportunity to do it. And just email us and we'll be happy to do that. That'll be a lot of fun. Black Iron Mercy. So if you have not read that book, you're running late, but you got to do it. But if you haven't read the book, you don't have to. That'll be a fun discussion. We'll have bring your libations. We're just going to hang out and talk about that. Yeah. And then we'll talk next week about Shiloh. So book club finally. This is finally going to happen.
Yeah. And just to let everybody know, Tony let me know earlier about a sound issue with our latest podcast. It has been fixed, and I'm going to repost it. So if you notice it's a little bit quieter or you're only hearing it on one side, that will be fixed.
Yeah, that was exciting. I thought my iPod was broken.
I know, and I was like, fuck, I don't know how it happened. I have no idea.
I think I know.
It's okay.
So everybody have a great weekend. We're going to jump off. So hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you enjoyed the the time this morning. Always fun doing this. Always a high point of my week is these little things we do. So, so anyhow, any final words from you, Dairy Queen of Kincardine?
Well, thanks to everybody for hopping on with us for these 2.5 hours this morning. Yeah, especially to Jen R. and Chris for joining us after a few weeks of not
it was cool
being around here. It was awesome having and good to see Pike back as well. So yeah, it was awesome having everybody on here, and thank you for your support through these 32 episodes. And thanks to you, Darren, too, for just being an awesome podcast co-host and putting up my grumpy moods.
We all crossed a bear. No, it was good. It was good. Anyway, so everybody have a great weekend. Have a great Saturday. Stay safe. Stay well. Have a great time. And we will look forward to talking to you soon. And Jen got the vax today. Awesome. Get your vaxes. Get your vaxes. Awesome. Bailey, have a great weekend. Always a pleasure to see you on this as well. So, Mary, again, like I say many times, the pleasure was all yours. And we will. Yep. Okay. And we'll talk to everybody later. So, everybody, enjoy your rest of your weekend. Go BC hockey. And go Minnesota for Allie, and we'll have a great weekend as well. So,
bye, guys.
Peace out.